Friendship. Friendship again?
Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 133rd live stream from the MisfitGamersStudios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we are going to be kind of casual, as we have been before with Tangent Talks. We have a couple different topics that we're going to go through, kind of just spitballing some opinionated topics today. No history ofs, no hard facts. We're just going to kind of talk about a little bit of our experiences, talk about some ideologies that we have. And then we're just going to kind of keep it there. Might be a little bit of a shorter one today. We're definitely not going 4 or 5 hours on this one because I have other plans for this weekend. So we're not going to have it as short as an hour, but we are just going to kind of be cruising through these topics and spitballing them for however long that takes. So join us as we do our tangent talks today for skill checks, crit tables, and leveling. And I think... other than that, I don't know if we have any other updates. Next weekend is the community stream.
Yes, indeed.
November 9th, next Saturday, which
very excited.
I didn't know this, but it just so happens that I have other plans that day that I didn't know. They were kind of like both scheduled on about within like the same 24-hour period.
Right.
And then I just kind of looked at my schedule like a day or two later, and I was like, oh.
Well,
so
guess that's happening.
So yeah, so for next Saturday, November 9th for the November community stream, we will probably be shooting for an 11 a.m. start time because I definitely have to be done by 3 p.m. So that'll give us 5-hour window to get it all done. Voting is still happening, by the way, for this. So if you guys are part of the Discord,
yes,
you can go to the community streams channel under the D&D discussions area. We have 7 votes out right now, y'all. As of right now, Pop Culture Builds is winning with 3 votes. So apparently y'all love Shazam so much that y'all want to see that again.
I do love me some Pop Culture Builds, I'm not gonna lie.
So we have 3 days left for you guys to decide. We have Pop Culture Builds leading at 3. And then we have a tie between with 2 votes for Critical Cocktails, which is us just having chat, come up with ideas, using the ideas that have been presented in the thread for D&D cocktails, and we talk about them, we build lore on them, and if we can, we make them on stream.
Very cool.
And then there's the other one, the subletting subclasses, that has 2 votes.
That one I'm actually kind of excited to try.
I was really expecting that one because we've kind of done a different one each time.
Exactly.
So I was expecting people to want to see us sublet that, but it's only got 2 votes. So if y'all are interested, if you guys aren't part of the Discord, link is in chat. But yeah, that is on the community stream channel. Check that out and let us know. But 3 days left. There's another vote that just came in live for subletting subclasses. Now Pop Culture Builds and subletting subclasses are now tied. With 3 votes.
Somebody's gonna have to break that tie.
Let's see. So, Soul asked my question. So Soul shared a character he's been working on, and there was a spell in there I wasn't familiar with called Starry Wisp.
Yes,
he said it's probably the best cantrip in the 2024 Player's Handbook. You do 1d8 radiant damage that goes up by 1d8 when you hit 5th level, 11th, and 17th.
Sure, standard.
That's interesting. It definitely seems that.
I mean, it's nice that it's radiant damage and it's an attack roll. It's literally the only cantrip that's an attack roll with radiant damage.
Yeah.
The only other ones that do radiant damage are, what is that, Sacred Flame? And that one's got to be a saving throw.
Yeah, what was Eldritch Blast?
Eldritch Blast is force damage, which is nice for what it is.
Yeah.
But I
would think that there's been a bigger push for damage dealing cantrips.
I mean, yes, but to me, without a little bit of spice, it really feels a little bland, especially when it sucks so much where a lot of the times when you miss, you just get nothing. And like, to be honest, it's true of most regular attacks. Like if you're a fighter and you swing and you miss, like you get nothing. You don't get half damage. You don't get a cool effect, but you just don't hit. But there are a lot of things like there's this one spell called Frostbite where when you hit your target, they take damage, but they also suffer disadvantage on their next attack. When you hit somebody with Ray of Frost, their speed is decreased by 10 for their next turn, right? So like just like little pieces I really appreciate in some of the cantrips that they have, like just giving it a little bit more than just
I know why I have
damage.
a problem with it.
With what?
With So I was trying to think of like, is this a topic that we could go into where it's like, is there, should there be attack-based cantrips? Should there be damage-dealing cantrips? Like that could be a whole, topic, because it does seem like there's been a push for that for a long time. And I'm sitting here trying to like, develop my argument, like think it through my head, like how, what would I actually say? And I think I've actually figured out that I don't necessarily have a problem. I do. I have a problem with attack-based and damage-dealing cantrips, but it's not because I don't think we shouldn't have them. It's that I think, and this comes down to I understand why they don't do it this way, because this is a level of complexity that doesn't add anything to the game. It would add more complexity than is really necessary. So I totally get why they don't do it this way. But I think where I'm looking at it from is when I think of what cantrips traditionally were, which is just the kind of innate, super basic abilities that you can just do. You don't need to memorize them. You don't, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't burn anything. It's just, you just done it 1,000 times.
It's utility based.
Yeah, super low level magic. So when you get into these, spammable spells that do damage and sometimes better than what you could do melee wise and at range, right? I think I've always had an issue with it. It's because it kind of went against the utility, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. But it kind of, like we've talked about before, with our aversion to like the min-maxing approach, right? It feels kind of like that. It feels like it ends up being that go-to, well, if I can do magic, I might as well just at least, get one of these two basic ones, right? Like like Hellish Rebuke or Eldritch Blast or something like that. Like the idea that they're go-to, and I obviously, for obvious reasons, but I think where my issue is I've never really looked at cantrips as like that kind of level of go-to, but I understand that I do want more magic that can just be done, right? I do want more than just the absolute low level I can start a fire, right?
Right.
But I think that in my mind, the best way to do that would be to add a third tier of magic. And this is where it gets into, for Wizards of the Coast, like from their point of view, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't enrich the game enough to do it this way. But what I would like to see is a third tier of magic where you have cantrips and you have either something below cantrips or something above cantrips, right? But I would love this idea of you have the utility spells that are perfectly spammable, just indefinitely. Right, just the absolute abusable ones. But for things like attack-based ones, imagine having like a list of let's call them let's just call them cans, like a list of these attack cantrips, and just say that you were able to cast, say, any a certain number of cantrips in a day, but any one of them that you have. So basically, like it turns every magic user partially into a sorcerer. So you could be a magic user who has to still prepare all your other spells, but this is like a block of spells that you can just cast from. So almost like a bucket of almost like from like a sorcerer, right?
Okay.
And this is where it kind of just doesn't make any sense when you really try to apply it to like actual D&D mechanics. It kind of falls apart, because that's why the sorcerers have what they do. But it is just kind of, it's the fact that they're not really disconnected enough from the super low level utility spells. And then there's suddenly these very useful attack spells, and then there's everything else. There's all the regular spells. And
right.
It feels like they were kind of shoved into this group of utility spells, which, again, I get why they did it. But for me, it's just that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel quite where...
You feel like they should feel more powerful, but still be able to be used in a sense...
Like I want these
freely.
I do want these things to be not spammable, but not cost anything. I do like the idea that they don't cost. My issue comes down to the pedanticness of when we call them cantrips, it just kind of dilutes what any cantrip.
It makes it feel
is.
Very flat.
Exactly. And it just says that, and it also makes me believe that there needs to be more. Like, where is the cantrip to move where is the force cantrip that I can move someone 5 feet? Where is the ability for me just to in battle be like, I attack you, and then boom, bonus action, I can just like cantrip and move, a gust of force that just scoots you 5 feet away from me.
So there is a feat called telekinetic where
Yeah, but-
you get that.
But that should be it. Like to me,
That should be a spell.
If I can Hellish Rebuke, if I can Eldritch Blast, why can't I just no damage, but I can just poof you, right? Why isn't there? Oh my god, why isn't there a? I mean, again, you can find some that would be overly useful and therefore game breaking, right? Like if you had a disarm cantrip, could be super game breaking. Like disarm. You would just every.
I mean, if there was a saving throw for it, like I think that would be a really cool cantrip.
Right, but I could also see that just being again like kind of one of those things where it's like that could get overused. I mean,
Sure.
everybody takes it, and all of a sudden you just walk into a room and just people just start dropping their weapons, and it's like, okay, So again, but there's so many.
Maybe that should be a leveled spell.
When I look at the attack based cantrips, I feel like they don't belong because there's so few of them. One, there's just like a handful of them, so it's like you get thrown into the utility spells just so you could be used all the time, which is great. But there's really not enough of you to justify you being here, but you also stand out from all of the other ones. That's why I feel like there needs to be like a separate category, because I do believe that there should be innate abilities, right? Like a innate set. If you're a magic user, here's certain things that you can just do, right?
Yeah.
These are what we call cantrips now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like what I would say is move what we now call cantrips into innate abilities. Just bring them down a notch and just say, look, these are innate magical abilities. If you can do magic, you can do these. Then turn cantrips into these highly useful, more than utilities, right? This is where you're going to get the push. This is where you're going to get the disarm. This is where you're going to get Eldritch Blast. You make these new categories of spells.
Interesting.
But then you say something along the lines of you can cast a number of cantrips per day or per long rest equal to your proficiency modifier. So again, it's like, here are the cantrips you can cast, but you don't need to prepare them. Once you've chosen that that cantrip, you can cast it whenever you want. So you still have to choose the cantrips that you know.
Right.
But once you've chosen that, unlike any other spell you have, you just say, if I want the Eldritch Blast cantrip, I just now know that all the time. And I can cast that up to 6 times. But when I level up later, maybe I take the push one. So now I have Eldritch Blast and push, and I can cast either of those up to 6 times, or 3 and 3, or any combination, right? Because of my proficiency modifier.
Mm-hmm.
Or again, just make it like a base 10. You get 10 of those a day. Just again, make it substantial. Make them usable and not really cost,
right.
Don't make them cost anything super valuable, right? Don't walk around with only 1 cantrip in a day. But that's where I feel like when I think of these attack ones, I always have a reservation, and I think it's just because you don't belong with the rest of them, but there's not enough of you, and that's another shame. There should be more of these useful abilities, right? I really like the idea of having more combat-based cantrips, but not damage dealing cantrips, right? Like, can you imagine a hold person cantrip, but it only works if they're prone? And all it does is give you basically like a disadvantage or an advantage on like almost like a grapple. So it's like you can't do anything to anyone with it, but if they go prone, you can basically use this cantrip when they try to get up or whatever, and they basically just have like a disadvantage on getting up because it's like someone's holding them down.
Yeah.
So just something as simple as that could be so interesting and unique, but I think if you have enough of these, they kind of morph into their own tier of spells. But I don't want them to be spells. I don't want these things to be one-offs. These are just kind of those things that if you know magic, I could kind of understand that you would learn these over time, right? Pushing air enough to, push someone back. Sounds like something a magic user could just learn how to do, right? If someone can just learn Eldritch Blast, if someone can just learn how to, shoot energy across the field and hurt someone, why can't I just shove you? There's
Interesting.
There's more than
I do like the idea of expanding what cantrips means, and I do get the idea that there might be enough here for there to be 2 separate sections, enough here for there to be 2 different things that are trying to happen at the same time. You got the damage dealing cantrips, but then you also have these utility based cantrips that you could use so creatively. And there's something to be said for maybe you can have like 10 of these or something like that, and be able to get it back on a short rest or something like that.
Because I do like the idea of having them in abundance, but I could also see that there, justifiably some limit, but an abundance beyond your normal spell casting. But again, I can absolutely already tell you it's just too complicated for the standard core rule books, right? It would be at best an optional rule or a variant rule.
For sure.
But if anything, I still agree that I still say that there needs to be more combat oriented cantrips that are not damage dealing. I really do think it makes me think of you remember Jubilee from X-Men.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of why can't you have because you have dancing lights, which is a distraction. So why can't I have, that would be an innate ability. Dancing lights is a cantrip, but an innate one. So imagine an attack based one where it's kind of like Jubilee's ability to where you can blind a target just until the start of their next round.
Right.
So maybe that gives, or until they get attacked next. So maybe it's just literally a shot in their face of sparks to where it actually blinds them. And then maybe the next attack on them from anybody gets advantage. And that's it. That's all it does. So kind of what isn't Fairy Fire also a cantrip? Or
it is not.
Oh, that's
first level.
That's first level.
Yeah, I wish it was.
It's almost kind of like that, right? It's like a one-off Fairy Fire where I blind you, anybody that attacks them gets advantage, but it only happens once. Once they get attacked, then they're no longer blinded or whatever. But I kind of like the idea of building out more constructive low-level spells. We talked about this a while ago, but remember when we talked about low-level polymorph, having another lower version of polymorph that actually has more restrictions in terms of it doesn't actually affect the stuff on you. So yes, things things of that sort would be really interesting. I think to expand how magic works. I forget where we went off on that topic, but
that was all Souls, Starry.
Oh yeah. And then Soul also posted that Starry Wisp actually has a range of 60 feet,
which is kind of dope.
That's insane.
But I mean, you look at what's the one OG that everybody used to always say is the best cantrip? Firebolt, 300 feet, and it's a D10 of damage. Right, it's fired. It's wild.
This is only a D8 with that much shit. Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Cosmic says that there is a low-level polymorph called Wild Shape. Not quite the same thing because you can't wild shape somebody else.
Exactly. I'm gonna go wild shape the BBEG.
Right. Yeah. That would be a forced wild shape. Really interesting.
Turn you into a druid against your will.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I feel like there just needs to be a separation from some of the more, innate abilities. And then, again, it could be just one of those things where it's you even have innate cantrips versus chosen cantrips, right? So you could even just say, if you're a magic user, here's all, Prestidigitation, Dancing Lights. Those are just anything that anybody that can do magic can do those.
Right.
But then you have a second set, which is these are the chosen ones, right? These are the ones that are actually
I honestly, I think every druid should have druid craft. I think every wizard should have prestidigitation. I think at the very least, just have the capability, even if they don't use it like that, but it's almost one of those things where
it's the first thing you have to learn. Just to know that magic.
It's what comes out.
Be learned. And but I can also understand the struggle that they have of when you want to make something useful, but you also don't want to make it so abundant that it becomes if it's so abundant, is it really a useful tool or is it just a part of the game?
Yeah.
Why not just say that
I lightweight think something like guidance should be a cleric class feature, right? You know what I mean? Granted, give it to other people as a spell, bards can use it too, but I don't know. It feels like it fits what there are certain classes that you get this cantrip in addition to whatever other cantrips you get. I feel like it should be something like that where it's just it's an addition, it's a piece of what you are.
Come to think of it, this might be a good topic for another day because I saw that you already updated the topic, so here might be another good topic.
Oh, that wasn't the topic, but I was actually
it's one of those things. It's So we have inspiration, guidance. And I think that's it, right? Like those are the two main buffs that most of the like clerics will usually get guidance. Bards will usually get inspiration or bardic inspiration.
There's bardic inspiration. That's a class feature.
Right.
Guidance is a guidance, and I think resistance are both cantrips for cleric. Resistance just basically does it for saving throws.
One thing that we should do as a topic, probably just like on another Easy Friday, we should do what do we want to call it? We should call it inspirational class features. So we should break down, because I really think that this is a missed opportunity. Every class should have something, and I don't think inspirational is the right word, but every class should have like a rally cry. So if clerics had a class feature of guidance, bards had a class feature of bardic inspiration. What if fighters had their own, monks had theirs, rogues? And if we look at it, what does guidance do? What does bardic inspiration do? We could use that as a roadmap to be like, what should every class be able to bump? Because if you think about it, if they're all in their moment and they can all inspire you, they can all bring something out of you, where guidance helps you think, right? Bardic inspiration helps you survive. What if like the rally cry from the fighter helped you take more damage? Maybe it was temp HP, or maybe you hit harder, right? Maybe you get a bonus attack like just one time, right? Maybe you can just swing one more time. Like a rogue could like help with like a deception check, like if you're not a good liar, maybe he could like give you a good story to like help, like, so maybe you get good on deception, persuasion, like, so he could help you with certain checks. A fighter would help you with different checks. Guidance would help you with different, like, I kind of like this. If we can do a rally cry for each, like a class feature rally cry for each class, and really make them to where, because I think that's an awesome idea. Like, you're right, I think guidance should be a cleric class feature. But then that begs the question, why don't the other classes do that? Why can't the other classes inspire you to do something?
Right.
And I think that there's enough, right? There's enough skills, there's enough things that happen in battle and outside of battle. I think there's enough things that every class could easily do a very unique buff and it not feel like OP. You know what I mean? Like, unless like literally everyone buffed the same character with all of their different buffs, but then you're only going to get it for one person. Like,
but that is a cool thought. Like, imagine you guys all come together to like super buff this one dude, because like maybe it's their backstory mission, and like they're the main character of this moment, and they're fighting off like somebody from their past or something like that, and so that you make them the freaking shit for this encounter.
Maybe,
like,
I mean, you can even have a custom house rule that if you were able to gain every class buff, maybe something happens. Maybe you summon Captain Planet or something.
That would be fire. That would be fire. I like that. So what are we calling this?
Let's just do class feature rally cries for now. And then we'll figure out a more appropriate title later. But I think, class feature rally cries we'll start with.
Got it.
Cosmic, what's going on? You have minor news. Wednesday group has leveled up to 14. Congratulations.
Very nice. Very nice.
That is a feat in and of itself.
And
they gave me such
indeed.
Soul says that we should call it fascinating feats.
Fascinating feats. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, because, I don't want to just use inspirational because bardic inspiration, right? But I do want to use, we want to invoke the idea that's why rally cry is the only thing I could think of, but we want to use something that like invokes the idea that they're pulling something out of you, right? It's that second wind. It's that you hear that and you're just like, no, we can, or you get some sort of a, you get something, right? So yeah, fascinating feats. We could write that one down as an option. We'll have to spitball some ideas.
We got this.
Ooh, counter charm's always good. I really do like counter charm as a feat.
Oh yeah.
Is that a feat or is that a spell? I think that's for Bard. I think that's just a thing they get, right?
Counter charm? I'm not sure what counter charm is.
Cosmic counter charm's a bardic feat, right? That you get once you've leveled up, or was that a spell? because your bard's 6. So I want to say, because counter charms like when you can like use your music to like stop others.
Counteract somebody being.
It's specific to like it's basically what happened to Olo in the bar.
Yeah.
With
the waitress.
With the waitress.
Mm-hmm.
Your future wife.
Whatever, it's fine.
It is a bardic feat. Yeah.
It's a level 6 feat. Let me look at
so
that.
that's the one that you can basically counter.
Is this 2024 stuff or is this?
No, I thought it was 2014, but it might be 20. They probably updated it, but I thought it was 2014. I mean, this is also Cosmic's character that he's been gaming for a while, so it's probably 14.
That's fair.
And then after that, we'll get into our first topic. We've already been talking. Thanks for the topic, Soul. That was a good little starter.
Oh, it might be in the specific college. It might be the class feature or a subclass feature.
He is a bard
Valor.
Yeah.
Valor. Let me look at Valor.
Oh my gosh.
They get extra attack. Yeah, I don't know where counter charm is. Oh, Soul. I was looking through your character. It looks very, very interesting. Where was I? I cannot tell. There's like letters in the skill boxes, and I was like trying to figure out one of them says H, one of them says P, one of them says E. So I'm guessing E is expert. I'm guessing P is proficient, but I'm not 100% sure what H is, unless that's not an H. Whatever, but that might just mean like not proficient, or maybe it's an N. Maybe that's what it is.
It was a pretty interesting character build. Otherwise, it's honed. It's honed.
Oh, interesting. Is that like
or half proficient?
Oh, half proficient. Interesting. All right. Oh, is that from Bard? Do you get like half proficiency in all your skills for something, or for like Jack of all trades? That might be a thing.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah. It sounds like an interesting build. I'd have to have it more described from a lore base. It's so hard for me to look at, like, because like, you know, when I look at the character sheet, it's like, yeah, I know. I mean, especially because we just did Shazam. It's like, yeah, I know what a 14 level bard looks like, or a 14 level monk, right? Like minus the subclass. But looking at it on paper is a lot more difficult for me to really get what the build is about.
Yeah.
You know, especially without seeing it in action. Because to me, it's also like, I've never really been one to make backup characters. So it's like, I don't know when this is supposed to be, you know, fit in and everything.
Right.
Like, it seems like there's a lot of complementary stuff happening. Here we go. What? Hecate.
Friendship.
Oh, thank you so much, Hecate. I appreciate you. Subscribe for 4 months.
Hecate.
For this stream. Thank you guys.
Appreciate
so
you guys.
Y'all. I just lost my train of thought.
I think you're just talking about how.
Oh yeah, so it's like,
yeah.
I would just. It's difficult for me to see like how that would just be implemented, because there's a lot of complementary abilities that it seems like it has, but I would have to sit there for a while to decipher like how it would be used and what it actually is. I don't do well with just getting the names and being like, oh, that's what that means. Right. Like I'd have to go into it or actually have it described to me. So we will see. I gotta check out these votes real quick. Oh snap. Okay. All right, y'all. Well, pop culture builds and subletting subclasses are tied. 3 days left. We'll see if those either would tip. I'll probably I'll do another ping in the Discord in a couple days, like right before it ends.
Okay.
Because I have a feeling it's gonna get stuck like that for a minute. We'll see. I don't think Vixie voted yet, so maybe I can get Vixie to be the tiebreaker. Oh no, Vixie voted. So no tiebreaker. Vixie can't be the tiebreaker. All right. So the new damage type. I actually was curious what kind of damage you are trying to create, because usually Yeah, I've looked at I've experienced people doing like different damage types before, like different levels of elemental and things of that
Yeah,
sort.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm really curious what Cosmic's going to come up with for a new, essentially like an elemental type of damage, I guess.
Interesting.
Or a new type.
Very
of,
interesting.
Yeah, really curious to see.
I ran a one shot for a group of people the other day, and I actually created a new condition for it. It was called lured. It was like the opposite of frightened, you know. So
gotcha.
instead of like frightened, you can't move closer to the target. This one you can't move further away. This one you get disadvantage attacking anything other
That's
than.
funny because there used to be something like that in second edition.
Really?
I don't know if it's made its way to, because I know frightened is still there, but yeah, there was a second edition spell that did that.
Interesting. See, that would be cool.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. Cosmic calls it distortion damage. So
Distortion
we're gonna have to get a
damage.
description on that through submission, because he says it goes with the weapon. So I'm hoping that we'll get that.
Oh, is it
through
included
homebrew.
in the weapon?
He just says that he has a weapon for that damage. So I'm hoping that we'll get like a homebrew submission. For
Okay,
that, so we
cool,
can
cool.
review
Thug
and see
life.
what that actually is.
Um,
And then Soul does that it's more of a tank and succeed at everything kind of build.
tank and succeeded. Yeah. I
So
mean,
that
with the
does-
rage, with the totem barbarian, with all the
Yeah,
I can see
you're
that.
gonna be super tanky on that one.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right. Well, let's go to our first actual scheduled topic. Something that we had brought up a while back, and we haven't really just sat and chatted about it. But one of the things that I want to do, I think maybe either next Friday or the Friday after, one of the new history ups I want to do is the history of skill checks. Because I know that that's hugely different. You know, it used to be proficiencies. Now it's skill checks. I'm really curious to see how it evolved and the mechanics of them.
Yeah.
But in light of doing that as a history of, one thing that I wanted to, just kind of discuss is like the current state of like just skill checks in general. Like, again, for me, I'm not as familiar with them from a DM point of view because I use more proficient, proficiency based, but they're roughly the same thing. Like my proficiencies are just more selective things that you can do, whereas skill checks are like it's more of a range of things that everybody can do, but dependent upon what you get, you're skilled in it, right? And you get bonuses in your mods and all of that. So
I was actually just talking to one of my buddies about this the other day, and a lot of the times I feel like he's not a newer player, but he's one that is still kind of getting used to what everything looks and feels like in 5th edition. And so he was talking to me, he's like, I don't always know what the skill checks are for, like what I'm actually receiving from the skill check. And so I think that a lot of the times there's such a varying degree of what each DM feels like this skill check is for, right? So it's like, hey, this DM might use this, but this other DM might use this, or and so a lot of the times I don't know if it's inconsistency that gets people unsure, or just maybe a singular DM uses it inconsistently, and so it's like, yeah, I'm gonna have you do a perception check to pat this guy down, but you're gonna do an investigation check to look for the sniper or something like that, and who knows why it occurs. But I think that sometimes just being able to describe at least as clearly as possible like what's actually happening in your check, like being able to know like what you're doing it for, I feel like.
So it sounds like what you're describing is similar to what we talked about, like when we talked about alignment and several other things about D&D, where it seems like what a lot of people run into then is the issue of colloquial versus situational use, right? So if someone thinks insight, if you play by the book on what insight is supposed to be, which is being able to tell if someone's deceiving you, right? That's what the book says insight is for. But if someone who's DMing off the cuff and they're like, oh, insight, Yeah, you can you can see if there's more to meets the eye. That like they'll expand, or they may use insight for something else. Someone may use perception as like I've played with DMs. Excuse me, I played with DMs who have used perception purely visual. It is only if it's visual, it's perception. If it's not visual at all, it's not perception. Wow. So like sounds weren't perception checks.
What were those checks, or do you not have those checks? Like that would be very interesting to me.
Investigation, because we'd have to figure out where it came from.
Interesting.
So you hear the sound and you're like, where'd it come from? Well, you can investigate where it came from, and it's like, but my perception wouldn't tell me the direction. Like, so again, then I've had other DMs where, again, perception checks were used for everything. You want to find something, perception check. If you heard something, perception check. You want to go find out where someone is, perception check. Like, is he lying to me? Perception check. It's like it's almost like they didn't know any other skills, so they were just like, well, do you perceive it? Like, and that's where I think it comes down to is it's the difference between DMs who know for a fact what the check is for, so they use each and every one in the situation that they're used for.
Yes.
And then there's others that just kind of use what sounds right in the moment.
Yes.
And I think that's where that confuses players the most.
I would definitely agree with that articulation. Like it's really hard sometimes, especially over time, to like be able to be like, because I think you and I have talked about this. Like, we are very much about becoming and being our characters, right? And so a lot of the times that includes like role playing, like what's going on and what's happening. And while there's definitely a place to allow the DM to do that in a lot of situations, like there's also a lot of times and places for you as your character to embody that. And I think a lot of the times, when I'm doing like checks and things like that, I love to like articulate and specify like the way my character would go about doing something. Like if I'm foraging, or if I'm scanning for something, like what does it look like when they're the ones going about it, so I think that having a better idea of like what you're actually doing when these checks are being asked of you, or even if you are asking for checks, and that is another topic in and of itself, is like, do you ever ask for checks, or do you like, I was at that one shot I was telling you about. I had a player at my table. He just starts rolling. I'm like, I didn't ask you to roll for anything, bro. He's like, no, I'm doing this check. And I'm like, bro, you got to talk to me about this.
That was part of it. That was part of why I wanted to bring this up, is it wasn't just for, like the current state of how we use them. But I also wanted to talk about things like, because the two topics that I know we talked about that we wanted to bring up previously were, where were they? Hello?
Oh, why you keep being like that?
Oh, there. Yeah. So, like, two of the ideas that we wanted to talk about were, requesting checks, and that's basically like from the players. Like, do you allow, or how do you handle players requesting them? And then dogpiling checks. I wanted to talk about that too today.
Yeah.
Which for all of you who aren't familiar, it's if someone asks for a check, which is the first part of this, or if you give someone like, hey, you roll me this, and then every other player proceeds to be like, can I do that too? Can I do that too? There's also situations where someone doesn't do very well and everybody wants to ask, well, can I also roll and do like help them? Like, so there's a lot to unpack here.
Very much so.
But let's go with the first one that you talked about, which is how do you handle, or how is it that you feel about when players request to do a check? Like, how do you handle it? What's your feeling on it?
Honestly, I know this is kind of whatever. It's honestly depends on their manners. Like, genuinely, like if you are approaching me and it's like, hey, I'm super curious about this. Is there any way I can do like a history check to find something out? Is there any way I could do like 100%? Like, yeah, bro.
Requesting, is there a way to do it? And they offer what they think might work.
Like whatever the case may be, whether it's like, hey, is there any chance I can persuade this guy to like help us out? Or like, if you're genuinely asking me, can I do this?
And you're acting it out. Oh, not acting it out, but this is those situations that I talk about where that's part of role playing, right, is if they're not in character, but they're saying, I want to do XYZ for XYZ purpose. Like if you're basically saying, okay, so look, we can't get this information. Am I able to deceive him? Like, would you allow me to try and lie to him? Right. Like essentially they're, because there's some roles that the DM's going to ask where when you say, I'm going to just straight up lie to him, when you're like, I'm going to tell him this, and the DM knows that that's not the truth. Everyone on the table is pretty much like, okay, there's going to be a deception check coming. Like, but there are other times when they're like, like they might even ask like, so if I wanted to lie to him, I'd have to like deceive him, right? Like I'm not that good at deceiving. So could I try to persuade him instead? I can't lie to him, but can I use lofty words to convince him, but without lying? Like, those are the kind of thing you're asking for, is when they're trying to find a solution and they're simply being like, is this an option? You're totally okay with
I'm super here for that. But
I would say for me, I'm 100% on board with that. For a couple of different reasons. One, they're looking for a solution. It may not be the one that I wanted them to go for, but it's the direction that they're headed, right? And there's a point to where trust system, you're not asking for that as your first option. You know what I mean? Like if you walk in and be like, there's a guard here, he says you can't go in. If you're like, well, I'm going to do an insight check to see if he's lying to me. Like, or can I insight check? I think he's lying. Like, can I do like if it's one of those, you're working on it and it's kind of like, okay, can I do like, if it's just one of those, you're struggling and that's one of your solutions, I'm totally cool with it. I'm also okay with it, especially when they're respectful about it, because there might be times where I'm in a mode of the puzzle, or I'm in a mode of what this guy's about to say, and I may have just mind gapped. Oh yeah, you have a chance to do XYZ here. So when it's
I was going to say the same thing.
Like, hey, can I persuade him? Be like, oh, of course you can. Like,
yes.
Can I do this? Like, oh my God.
A lot of times
you can do that. I just forgot as a DM to present it specifically.
Because a lot of the times, like we're talking about, like number one, I really like it when I'm actually getting role play out of my characters, when I'm actually getting them to interact with the world around them. And so if there's a point in time where they're interacting with an NPC and they're actually role playing with them, like I'm not going to interrupt that to go for a check. Like in my mind, I'm just thinking like, this is the way the conversation is going. Yeah. Like you're succeeding at the charisma check just by talking, right?
The other thing that I don't mind in terms of the request, I prefer it when they're saying, hey, can I do something similar to this? I also don't mind it when they have a plan. Like when they kind of roll into it and they're like, can I deceive this guy? Like, I don't want to tell them the truth. Can I do this? I'm okay with that question too.
Sure.
In most situations. Again, if it's not the very first thing that you just don't want to solve it based on a roll, or if it's not spammed, if it's not like, oh, I'm going to do this. Well, can I do this? Well, can I do this? But if there's a direct logic and if it's a direct course of action and they're like, okay, like if I present them with a puzzle and they're just trying to get away with doing something just off of a roll, that's not really directly helpful. That's one thing. But I don't mind it when it's like, hey, I want to do this action and there's a skill check that directly associates. I want to lie to him. I want to change this person's mind. Can I persuade him? Right. There's a difference between I don't know what I can do and looking for something versus I have a really specific thing I want to do and this is the check I think works on it. Like you even said, hey, I've heard that person's name before. I would like to make a history check because I'm pretty sure my character would have read about it because of XYZ reason. Like I went to this church, I talked to this person, I like based on my nobility of background, like if it's a direct course of action and they're like, I'm pretty sure this logic fits, I'm okay with that too, in moderation, right? As long as it's not just constant, I know better and these are the roles that suit me the most.
Yeah.
But those are the two times I'm cool with asking, because yes, sometimes it's going to remind me that I forgot to give you the option. Sometimes it's just watching their thought process lead to that. And then other times it's great when they're just like, I got a course of action. I really want to do it. And this is what I think it would work. And those are great because at least when it's the course of action, it's like, I want you to do that, but you're going to do this role instead. That's the worst case that's going to happen. Because if you come at me with this is what I want to do. Well, it's like, well, of course it's what you're going to do. The only question is
how you
think you can do it. So if you say, hey, I want to do this by rolling a history check and then I'm just going to spout off everything I know about it to this guy. Be like, okay, so you're going to kind of do the whole I know more than you. I like where you're going with it, but that's not really going to be a history check, because what you're trying to do more is like out-talk them. So that might be more of a persuasion, in the sense that you're trying to persuade them that this fight's useless to them. Or, you know, so I
see, that would be a very interesting dynamic right there, because I would probably do something to the effect of, say they're trained in history, but they're not trained in persuasion, right? But they made that exact argument. Do something where it's like, I'll let you use your intelligence modifier, because you're trying to use your history to persuade them.
Right. So you can't use your best bonus.
And you're
not a history check.
You're not going to be trained in it. So you won't get your proficiency bonus, but you'll get to use the better stat, because a lot of the times that's what they want, is they want the better stat. So you meet them in the middle, you kind of work with it. So yeah, I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. But I think we're both on the same page. Telling us what you're going to roll, that's a no-go.
Yeah.
You don't tell me, well, I'm going to make a history check and that's what I rolled, so therefore this happens. Be like, look, I get it that we're all players here, and I get that this is like a collaborative thing, but one of us runs the game. That's not where I'm okay with. Like, I don't want my players telling me what they're going to do. Now, there's random situations, of course. I mean, if I ask them, be like, hey, there's a puzzle, figure out what proficiency or what skill you're going to use for this. That's one thing. And then you can tell me, because I kind of set that up to be what you're going to do. But yeah, the whole just coming out or pre-rolling, never pre-roll. Never, ever, ever pre-roll.
Pre-rolling?
Like don't roll for a stat and then tell the DM, this is what I'm doing.
No,
this is how I got it. There is one exception. Please don't. And of course, there's always an exception. There is one exception that I'm totally okay with, because it's what I do as a player. And if it's an internal decision only. If you are rolling because your character doesn't know what to do, and you're like, he's 50-50.
Yes, that's fine. That's completely, because that's not a roll that has anything to do with the DM.
But some DMs also have an issue with that. So I'm okay. Really? Oh yeah. So I'm okay. It's like, look, if you are rolling for personal decisions, that's fine. But you can't roll and then tell the DM after the fact what the roll was for and then what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the no-go. Like, and this kind of comes back to that whole thing of like, you know, it's there's a lot of honor system, but that's where I'm also against like secrets from players against the DM, because it's those little areas of gray, you know, those little gray areas that could really be disruptive if you aren't prepared for what's coming and you don't have it ready in the story yourself, right?
Right.
So so that's definitely the areas that I would say stay away from, is pre-rolling stats and stuff, or telling your DM like just what you're gonna do, kind of like along the same lines of, it's almost like it's that same line that you can cross being a rules lawyer, where you're basically telling your DM what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's not how that goes.
Like, look, I get it. You may think that you know the rules better, or you may know the rules better, but regardless of whether you're right or not, that's still not the approach you do. So
excuse me.
But yeah, other than that, so other types of good or bad uses. Do you have any other anecdotes of good or bad uses of from players, like of skill checks? Because obviously, like you I mean, don't argue, but you can also suggest an alternative. Like if they say, "Hey, throw me an, give me this check," and you're like, "I'm not really good at that. Can I use this instead?" That's fine. Just if they say no for whatever reason, just
be cool with it.
Be chill, because there's a reason. Now, again, hopefully your DM will give you a reason and not just flat out say no. Mm-hmm. Like hopefully they'll be like,
or if at the very least they can't tell you why in that moment in time, they'll let you know, I can't tell you why now. Yeah, but hopefully they'll be amenable. We'll get there.
But and at least make it understand. But yeah, it's always okay to suggest an alternative, especially if it doesn't suit your character. Mm-hmm. But again, it's all in moderation, right? You don't want to be doing that every single time. Yeah. You don't want them to be like, "Oh, we'll make this check," and then say, "Well, can I make this one instead?" Every time you go out and do it. So, any other?
I mean,
I'm trying to think of, like, that's really it. I think that really covers most of the situations you're going to run into. With skill checks.
I mean, the only other thing I can think of is, kind of going back to that rules lawyer mentality where they're trying to say that doesn't work for that, or you can't, that check won't do that, or something. And I'm like, listen, it's doing what it's doing for a reason, right? Like, just that's really the only other thing on that front that actually I would say happens in any sort of regularity.
Yeah. And then to answer your question, Cosmic, I personally wouldn't do it that way. I can see why a lot of people would go about it by just kind of, splitting it down the middle. I think a lot of people would probably find that fair, at least, initially. I have a problem with that just because while player and DM can disagree, at the end of the day, it is the DM's responsibility to run the game. If the DM is making that point and standing to their ground, it's kind of on the DM to be able to do that, right? It's not on the DM to, like, if the player wants to suggest something, that's totally fine. But if the DM rejects it, I would never say it's required of the DM to have to, not pander, but I don't think the DM should have to do, be expected to, what's the word I'm looking for? Compromise. Be expected to compromise on something like that, especially when it's a skill check, because by dividing the skill check out like that and saying, well, I think it should be this, you say it should be that, so let's meet in the middle, that kind of destroys the whole skill check in the first place. Because the skill check has the modifiers for a reason, and when you divide them between two irrelevant stats, like if the DM says, no, that stat that you're trying to roll off of doesn't make sense for this, dividing it still doesn't make any sense. You're coming to the middle of still nonsense. Like, and it's also maybe just for me is I'm more I don't want to say more respectful of DM's rulings, but for me it's just
you have to trust your DM. Like, and I feel like that's a really big piece of this game. It's like,
well put.
Players trust your DM, but DMs trust your players, right? It is very much a group effort that we're all here with. Like, they're not hopefully trying to screw you over. There are a lot of DMs that can get caught up in what's happening right now and just want things to happen the way they want things to happen.
The power of the control of it.
And sometimes it's momentary. Sometimes it's not intentional. It's just, they get caught up, right?
Yeah.
But if that happens, you can work it out after the fact, but you have to trust them overall that in the end, you're going to get to what you're mutually trying to get to. And
I think that's a great way to put it, because I think that's saying what I'm thinking but not able to put into words. Is it's not so much that I don't think the DM, like, the DM has to compromise a lot already for a lot of things that the players do. So something like this, when it comes down to the static rules, I was presenting it like I don't want the DM to compromise, but it's more of if there's this much of a strife, not just because there was a disagreement, but if there's such a disagreement that you needed to meet in the middle, to me, there's more of an issue with the gaming group. Like I can understand, hey, can I use this spell, or can I use this stat instead of that stat? Hey, no, not this time. It's important. Oh, that really sucks. I can understand frustration, but if you're getting to the point to where the game has stalled and someone had to be, and this had to be come up with, like, I don't want that roll. Well, this is the roll it has to be. Well, I don't want that roll. If that conversation has gone beyond, can I use this one instead? No, you have to do this roll. If that conversation continues, there is a very bad dynamic at that table to me. In my opinion, if the conversation has gone, hey, can I use this? No, for this reason. Are you sure? No, this is all I can do. If you keep arguing and then had to come to this conclusion, that gaming group is not successful. And I wouldn't want to be part of that gaming group, because that's always going to happen. Like, and so again, I'm not trying to say like, just by letting this happen once, it will guaranteed, but it tells me that there's more going on with the table dynamics. And in this particular case, I wouldn't want the DM to compromise, because it's more about that's how the dynamic now is going to work.
You're not trying to set a precedence like, oh, I'm just going to do whatever it is that you guys ask whenever it is that you guys ask.
Yeah, and it feels like there's too much player control at that point, because again, now the players are directly controlling the meta of the game. They're controlling how the game itself plays out. And, again, it's like at that point, go play a video game. Like, no offense, but like,
I mean,
it's so much funny. Like, I've been in a lot more D&D content the last couple weeks on my downtime, especially because I've been doing the TikTok content, so I've been into it a lot more. And it is funny. There still seems to be this very big divide these days, much bigger than I expected it to be, because this was kind of big back in the day, and I kind of expected it with 5th edition to fizzle out. But there still seems to be a very big divide in the community between just a mindset divide of players who like the struggle and who don't mind, having to earn things, and the players who we usually use the word entitled, but then there's the player group of, if I'm not winning and beating and basically if I'm not winning, I'm not having fun. Like it's those, I mean, and you see these for the same thing in video games, right? It's the people who can play a game all the time, but the moment they lose one game, they're like, oh, I don't want to play anymore tonight. Then they just leave, and I feel like this is still a big divide, because when I watch content, and especially God forbid, don't ever go into the comments, people. But unfortunately, I make content, so I'm in the comments. But I feel like that's what I'm seeing a lot in this newer content is there's a big divide, especially with some of the content that I've made that's a little bit more controversial, like the ones that I'm actually asking people for like real opinions. There's some opinions that are just all about the diversity and the challenge and the openness and the way things could just go in a different direction. But then there's a lot of these people who are they're so focused on expectation. Like, nope, I expect to win. I expect to live. I expect to level up. I expect to get this. Like it's not just I expect to be the strongest character, but it's like all of the expectations, right? Like, I'm this character, so therefore I expect to be able to do X, Y, Z in this game. I'm doing, not just because I'm a spellcaster so I can cast spells, but they're like thinking so far ahead. I mean, even the people who, like min-max, right? They're already decided 5 steps ahead before the game has been unfolded in front of them, but they're already chapters ahead, knowing exactly what's going to happen, right? So I feel like there's still that big divide now of just with a large group of players out there just thinking that it really is just for them. It's like they're there to I built this to look cool, so therefore your job, DM, is to make me look cool doing this shit. And it's weird to see people with that mindset, where it's like anything that even hints at them not being able to be a perfect playthrough, they're just like against it completely. They're just like, well, that's a stupid rule because of XYZ, and they'll usually cite like a specific reason where one time it got in their way. So they're like, so it's just a dumb rule because of this reason, and it's like, so one time it got in your way and you don't like it. I was in someone else's comment section, and someone was arguing about like crits are dumb. Like, crits are the worst thing ever because they crit failed one time. They were talking about this, and they're like, and I crit failed, and it was just like, it was so dumb. We were in the lead, and like I was supposed to do the killing blow, and it's like at the end of their comment, it was just like, so basically you're just mad that you decided you were gonna do all of these things, and because the die roll didn't do what you wanted to do, your headcanon said it's stupid that I crit failed because everything else that I had planned in my headcanon was ruined. And that's the problem with these people, right? Like, the types of players that have that mindset, it's they're playing their own headcanon. They're not playing the game in front of them, right? Like, they're playing a game separate from everybody else. And when that doesn't happen, that's when they throw their tantrums and have a problem.
There's a lot of expectation just in general that's out there. Like, the mindsets of so many people is filled with the way the external world should respond to them, should treat them. And I think that is a challenging mindset to have, because from my experience, the outside world is fucked up, and it's gonna do whatever the heck it's gonna do, regardless of who you are. And if it doesn't work out, then I just have to deal with that.
And that's why I love having the open world gameplay.
Yeah,
because that's exactly the mindset. If you win or lose, the world goes on. And guess what? The next gaming group, they're gonna have to deal with whatever you did or did not do. So yeah, no, and I find that as one of the more challenging things as a DM is getting on that level with your players. Because like I said, going back to Cosmic's comment, I think a lot of people would find that very fair. I think a lot of people in a very amenable group that everybody's just friends and they're like, hey man, that's not really like the best thing for me. And they're like, yeah, it's not supposed to be the best thing for you. Like it's supposed to be a challenge. Be like, but it makes more sense this way to me. And you're, like if there's a point where like, okay, well, let's just do half. I can see a lot of people not having a problem with that. It's not like it's guaranteed to mean that the players are trying to get one on the DM.
Sure.
But for me, it would be one of those, if we go back and forth once or twice on the roll, but you're still just not liking it and it's a stall in the game where you're just like, I don't want to roll that, I want to roll this. Where it's like, if you're so mad about this one skill check that you're going to stop the game, I now question more about should we even be gaming? Like in that moment, I'm not going to like stop the game and I'm going to try to solve the problem and continue. But in the back of my mind, I've just put a Post-it note up of, are you
sure
back?
This is what you want to be doing? Are you sure you want to play this game that we're playing here?
And it's not that I'm mad about it. It's just more of I don't, if this isn't how you want a game, that's fine. But you should go find a group that will play like you want to do. I don't want there to be strife here. I don't want us arguing every gaming session about like rules and semantics, right? I mean, obviously it's one of the biggest challenges I have playing second edition in modern day. It's already an issue. Most people don't know the rules or don't like the rules or have,
pre-existing knowledge that they want to bring into the game and treat it as
it's very
Bible.
difficult sometimes for me because I have to, but again, I'm okay with that challenge though, because again, my game is so much more about the story. It's so much more about the actions and what you do than the character build and all of that, which again is one of the things that I enjoy about it, because every character, even if you feel like second edition is very basic, every single character gets so much customization in High Point that, you're basically going to make a subclass if you want it, right? Like you'll be able to get those features if you really want it.
Right.
It does exist. It's just not cookie cutter.
How are you going to go about it?
And I prefer that, right? I don't mind what 5th edition has done with subclasses, but I do just kind of, one of the things I love about 2nd edition is just, there is no cookie cutterness. I don't know what I'm going to be until I've decided it. I can map out 20 levels, but especially with the way that I allow people to truly customize and actually make their own feats and make their own abilities. It's one of those things where it's like, why do a roadmap when you can be something totally new, and be a hero that deserves to be a hero and not just something that you saw someone online do and you're like, oh, well, I know that works. You know what I mean? Like that's, I like that, right? Like I like that idea for me. So it really just depends on the gaming group that you have though. At the end of the day,
it's very true.
Like I said, I can easily see people liking that. It's not how I would want to play it. But if that's it for skill checks, we can go on to our next topic. Topic number 2. Well, actually, it'll be number 3 because Soul gave us topic number 1.
Fair.
So topic number 3 for today, 2 on the list from the title, crit tables. I actually watched a couple videos recently with a couple different arguments for and against crit tables.
You're talking about crit fail, crit success, where like if you get a nat 1, you roll on this like fumble table and maybe you lose a hand. Okay. Okay.
So crit tables, good or bad? I mean, as in, 20 or net, nat crit or nat fail, right? Whichever.
Right. Both sides.
Oh my God. Yes. Nat 20 or nat 1. But what are your thoughts about crit tables in general? The ones in the book, creating your own, using them in general, like what are your thoughts on crit tables?
I have played in games where they use them. I have found that a lot of the way generally they're implemented, there are times where it feels like it takes away from the immersion, specifically because the crit table has no idea the context of what happened. It has no idea the context of what's actually happening. So if it says your hand freezes and you just crit failed a swipe, like where does that so it's really hard for the crit table to basically respond to the actual fail, and it doesn't. And so for me, I much prefer to to be spontaneous in the moment, to kind of look at what's happened. It's so funny. One of my other buddies I was just talking about, we were talking about crit fails and how he crit failed a perception check, and he was under the impression that when you crit fail something, you need to get punished for it, right? You need to go and like experience some bad things. So he sat himself in the water that could potentially have got him in damage, but it was a perception check, right?
Right.
So it wasn't.
He was going too far with the idea that a crit fail needed to have
exactly.
punishment.
And so the idea of what is happening and what you're responding to, like if you're shooting an arrow and I crit fail and one of my allies is sitting right there, it's a great opportunity, right?
Perfect opportunity.
You know, like if that happens, and I love, there's a super standard one that I like where if you crit fail a melee attack, the person that you crit failed gets an opportunity attack on you. They just can like counterattack, right?
Yeah,
you know,
just like
it's something simple. It's something small. It's nothing crazy. It's not like they get a whole multi-attack or they're casting a spell on you. It's just a melee attack in response to you failed.
That's not
right?
bad. I like that.
You know, and so like there are little things that you can use to feel like it makes sense for the moment, depending on what it is. But don't get me wrong, like there's some cool stuff in these crit tables. Like there's some cool
There's
things
some cool
in there.
ideas in them, but so no, you hit it on the head right at the beginning. I wasn't sure if you were gonna do it, but I like reading through crit tables occasionally because some are really creative and some have some cool ideas. But I am drastically against using crit tables because they are so non-contextual. Like it's just the idea that they're, you know, they're non-contextual in terms of, like you said, they don't take what's happening into account. They have no idea what's going on, but also sometimes they're just, I guess has nothing to do with non-contextual. So yeah, so that was my biggest issue. I would much prefer something that makes sense. But another issue that I have too is I would say that every crit table I've ever read, while there's some really good and some really strange ideas on there, every crit table I've ever read is very poorly balanced. Because you'll have a crit table that says you everywhere, like a failure, from, oh, you drop your weapon, to you hit yourself and take 1d4 of damage, to, you know, you hit an ally that's within 5 feet of you, to you chop off your leg.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I could have gone from 4 points of damage, dropping my sword, or now I'm bleeding out, and from now on my character has 1 leg for the rest of the campaign because of a fucking what? So
and don't get me wrong, I get that could potentially happen, but it's gotta be in context.
But that's my point.
It's gotta be.
But not even just in context. Like when you read some of the tables, it's like, because there's so many out there, right? But you read any particular one, and it's not just that they go from, it's just, there's always like 1 or 2 things on these crit tables that just don't match with the others, right? Like you said, like it could be all of the damage yourself, drop your weapon, do this, do that, run into the enemy, fall prone, or get frostbite. What? I'm in the fucking desert in the middle of the day. Where am I getting frostbite? Because I hit him and did I lose circulation for half a second and what? Yeah. So yeah, and that's what I feel like. For me, it's not just about the context, but I've never read a crit table where I've looked at all of them and said, I would believe any one of these things to happen. But I read every crit table and I'm just like, fuck that one. No way that one happened. How does that one and that one happen in the same context? Like it's just like I feel like people make a couple good ideas and then they're like, well, we need to pad it, right? We need to get up to 6 or 8 or 10. So they just throw more things in there. And it's like, there needs to be something more, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be, I don't know, man. Like I wish that there was a lot more too, because I think there's kind of like what we were talking about originally with the cantrips. There's a lot more that could be had for fails that I think don't ever happen. Like, you know what's a sorely missed mechanic in D&D is the clash. Like you go for an attack and you miss, but you two get face to face and you're just like locked in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where is that?
Yeah.
Where is the clash or the lock-in? Where is the moment where you're face to face with the enemy, your weapons are, and that's it. Like the round ends there. Like maybe you have like maybe it could be a mechanic where when you and the enemy go in the same initiative and you both attack each other, you can get into this clinch to where until the start of your next turn, you are locked in sword to sword, face to face. So the whole turn you can't move, and everybody else around you, you guys can't. So maybe there's like attack advantage on you. So any attack on you has advantage, but any attack on the enemy has advantage because you two are here, like basically having a conversation for the next 6 seconds. You know, you're growling at each other, you're making slight comments.
I do like that idea.
Where is that? That is just not something that you like have an
that would be a cool
to.
condition. Like imagine like a like on a miss of less than 5, you enter your opponent into the clash condition.
Yeah, right.
Like something like that. Like
I really feel like that could be one. Or like, you know, like you were saying, like crit fail melee attack. The target gets to move you 5 feet. So imagine you come in and you miss, and they just go, they block you and then grab your shoulder and then shove you.
Oh, like mess with your momentum and like move you.
Why can't that be a failure? Just you missed on a crit 1, they literally just tugged you, or they threw you to the ground at their feet, or they just push you back, or they let you go behind them and now you're behind. Like, just imagine that if you crit fail, the enemy gets to fuck with you. Because it doesn't have to mean that you take damage, but think about that in fights. Like you've been in martial combat, like in tournaments, right? If they mess up, you can move them. Like you can use that to your advantage.
Why can't this is just a thought that came to my mind. Why can't opportunity attacks be shove or trips?
They should be.
They should be able to be. Like honest
or disarms. Bro, that's where disarms could come into. What if opportunity attacks could also disarm?
Because you already can use the shove.
Actually, disarm wouldn't be good because you're technically getting an opportunity attack when they run, but shove and trip.
So like you can use those as replacement for the attack action. So I don't know if it's rules as written, but like I've never heard of anybody trying to, for an opportunity attack. Imagine they're trying to run away and you trip them.
You just kick their legs
and now
out.
They're prone, and now they have to use half their movement to get up.
Dude, I like that. Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, like that a lot of the times is missed opportunity. And if like they're moving and I want to like shove them like in a direction, like say they're trying to run past me and I shove them this way and they have to trip or they run into one of their buddies or something like that.
Well, and this makes me think of like, again, so that's crit fail. What about like a crit success where, what if you gave the person an option? What if someone crits, right? Nat 20 on the enemy with a melee attack. Be like, okay, do you want damage, debuff, or movement? So they have to choose. If they choose damage, the crit doubles their damage like a normal crit would. If they choose movement, after they do their normal attack, then they get to like drag, push, knock prone, their choice. Like they can have a range of, you can, with this melee attack, you basically attack them and then you get to move them. If they choose debuff, maybe during their crit, they kick them in the leg and make them go down to a knee, and now they have half speed for the rest of the battle. Or the crit was to their knee, so like a called shot. So it's like, hey, you critted. Are you going to do extra damage, a debuff, or move them? So if I choose, I'm going to debuff them, so that crit, I'm going to go for their knee. So now they have half speed the rest of the match because my crit. So I didn't do extra damage.
Imagine if you tagged their arm and like that was their weapon arm, and like they have disadvantage on their attacks or at least a negative something.
Like that's this might go in the AADMG. This might actually be a high point mechanic now. I actually like the choice because far too often we've argued a lot about how you should do the damage, right? Some people like to do max damage. Some people like to double the dice roll. Some people like to double the amount of dice you do roll. I've heard of this new one called the Perkins system. Not a big fan of it, but it's, if you crit, you get basically max plus a roll. So if you were gonna roll like 2d6 of damage, you get 12, then you roll 2d6. So you automatically get max.
Oh, so you're based. Okay, yeah.
So that's this new one that's really popular right now that a lot of people are talking about, is like the Perkins system, where so if you crit, you automatically get max damage of whatever that roll was going to be, but then you roll on top of that.
Right.
There's an alternate one where you crit and then you roll twice and take the higher.
I've heard of one where you roll double the dice, but each die has to be at least half. So if any of the dice roll under half, so say you're rolling d6s,
Oh,
if any
you
die
just get
rolls
a-
a 3 or under,
Yeah.
you make it a 3.
And that's just, yeah. So crit damage is always just a contentious thing. But what if you could do more with the crit? What if you had a choice? So you could forego damage to permanently debuff them. You can forego debuffing them to move them. Like imagine they're near a cliff, but like 10 feet away. But imagine you get like a crit and you could drag them over to the cliff, right? Like there could be some unique options with that. I think I'm gonna do that though. I think I want to did you add that already? Oh,
I'm working on
yeah. So add that idea for me about crit options for players. I will revamp that fully because I like that over a crit table. If the player gets to choose in the moment
Right.
what that crit's gonna, because again, I have in High Point a called shot mechanic, and it's clunky and difficult, but I like it. It's the double crit mechanic where like, because again, called shots are just so much more difficult, right? So it's like called shot would be a very unique thing to add into this instead, where it's like if you crit now, you can get the extra damage or call shot it. Where did you hit him? And that could debuff him in a way that, you know, we could to work with. Like say he has a certain type of armor and you want to be super creative. Let's say you have a battle axe and you know that he has studded leather armor. So let's say you crit and you say, I don't want to do the damage. I want to battle axe him right across the chest to damage his armor.
I want to crack his armor and like make his AC go down by 1.
That's what I'm talking about.
Bro,
So
that would be
So
fire.
depending upon this, because if they're in plate armor, you ain't doing that. But if you have a weapon that you know could to just shred their armor, be like, no, fuck the damage. He has too much, because you're at that point, right? Let's say it's early in the battle. You're like, he has too much fucking damage. Doing an extra 10, I don't fucking care. I want to make it easier to hit that motherfucker. Get his AC down. Let me go through his armor to where everybody here, it's easier to hit him. Like that would be so much more of an impactful crit than just 20 extra damage. Being able to literally debuff them in the moment to knock them, like again, knocking them prone. You get the choice to just knock them prone on a crit. Like that could be beneficial, right? Like that right there could be the turning point of a battle over 25 extra damage.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like sometimes more damage is nice, but sometimes when you crit, like, because you've been there, you've critted and been like, yeah, okay, he's nothing happened. Because like you're happy that you crit, but like you're only really happy when you crit when it like is meaningful, when they're like about to be dead.
Right.
But having the choice to manipulate combat in a way. I mean, because then, oh my God, dude, the move mechanic. Imagine someone has spike growth out and you crit right next to the spike growth and you're just like, drag them. Like, there's your little mini cheese grater right there.
Bro, I freaking love it.
Being able to, dude. I mean, someone can get super creative and be like, can the movement be like, I could see myself as a player. If I was given that option, damage, debuff, or movement, I'd have to ask the question, can movement be a grapple? Because if movement is an option, can I force, like, if I can knock him prone to not move him, can I hit him and use that to like,
if you want, you're talking about like that I would consider that like kind of like a debuff. Like that's, you're basically imposing a condition on them.
Or debuff. Yeah, like, oh my God, I like this. I'm gonna work on this and I'm gonna present it in the Discord for you guys, because I really could work. I've been trying so hard to figure out how to properly do called shots. Like I do like a pre-designated called shot, but at that point it might just be a crit. Like it might just be, if you want that called shot, just crit. Because if it's part of this option anyway, I don't have to have this complicated mechanic to actually do like the crit, you know, the called shot. I can just say it's basically just a crit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll work on this. I like this. I like this a lot. Let's see what's going on in chat. So Cosmic's not a fan of range attacks being able to hit friendly fire. I 100% am a fan of that. I love having that as an option because it's 100% realistic. It's
not a fan
of
friendly fire for ranged attacks.
Yeah, like if a range attack has the possibility of friendly fire, he's not a fan of that. I love that. I think that is an underutilized mechanic, and I honestly think that it should be imposed more. Like, not like all the time. I don't want this to be like something you have to constantly worry about, but there are far too many times where the battlefield does not make sense that you just shot past 9 of your buddies.
I would say,
because again, there's one thing where it's like, if there's 100 feet away, I get it. You're aiming up. You can shoot right over their heads. when the dude is 15 feet away from you and you got like all of your, like, there are some situations where I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't just imagine that you're just magically Legolasing your way through all of your buddies.
Honestly, a lot of the times what ends up honestly, this has happened to me before, and I think this is a smart way to go about it. Like there was this one time where there's 5 of us playing, right? And 4 of us are like in the doorway, and 1 of us is behind trying to shoot through the doorway, right?
And I don't like the idea that that's not gonna have a chance to hit you.
You gotta think, all your buddies are between you and them. They have cover from you, at the very least 3/4 cover, right? And so if there's ACs that increased, you're gonna have to hit that AC, and if you miss it by just a little, guess why you missed it? By all that cover they had, and those are your buddies. And so I'm like,
you should always have I don't think it should always be a concern that a ranged person could hit an ally just because they're in front. But I really feel like there's too many times where archers are allowed to get away with it in situations where it's like, or a hand crossbows just get randomly used, and I'm like, you just pulled that out and whipped it out and shot past 3 of your allies. I'm sorry, but like,
I'll also say melee attacks can get it too. If you're in melee distance and you get a nat 1 and one of your buddies is adjacent to you,
as long as it's a nat 1, yeah. Like I'm totally okay with you over swinging and smacking a buddy.
It happens, man. It 100% happens. Now, if they're like completely behind you, I'm not going to do it like that. But if they're standing right next to you, engaged to the same thing you are, it happens, man.
Or like if they're just adjacent to you or the enemy that you're attacking. Basically, like right next to you or right next to them, because you could justify like the swing through.
Exactly.
Right? I'm okay with friendly fire in context, as long as the context makes sense. I don't like it as a general mechanic, as in anytime you could hit your enemy. No, or your ally. I don't think it should always be a concern. I don't think that if I'm firing at an enemy over here and I nat 1, I'm not hitting you. That doesn't make any sense. You're way over there. But if I'm shooting an enemy right behind you and I nat 1, yeah.
Imagine somebody's like holding somebody hostage. All those shots where they're like hiding behind the person, like you might hit them. Like that's a big deal. Like it happens. It's
like just doing a nat 20 in that moment where it's like, go or I'll kill him, and you're just like, fuck, I'm gonna try it. It's like, you know what? I'm chaotic neutral. I'm gonna let one rip. Nat 20 right between the eye, and just feel like,
God bless him. Now imagine somebody who is lawful good but so overly confident in their abilities. I was like, there's no way I'm gonna hit them. I'll shoot them anyways.
Oh, lawful good but also a paladin, so they're just like, my god got me on this one. My god wouldn't let me murder an innocent. Oh my god. And then they did. Oh, and then they lose their paladin hood right there. Can you imagine right in the middle of combat they do that and then they lose?
So disrespectful, bro. That would be so bad. Oh, man. Oh my gosh, that's wild. That's absolutely wild.
Oh. All right, what's going on? Hecate has a game where the player of mine rolled a nat 20 with a great axe and rolled double ones. Oof. Yeah, and I totally get why people have been messing with like being able to. I think that's why when I was looking at the video, that's one of the arguments that the Perkins person created theirs for, is just a guarantee that you're going to do your max, but they kind of like the idea that, if a regular attack can do max damage and a crit can do max damage, what's the difference, right? So I think I get why people want to do a max then some.
It's like, what's the point in me critting if I only do 2 damage?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like if a regular attack can do more damage than a crit attack, is it really a crit?
Exactly. Like, and that's why I feel like,
And so again, I get why.
But that's why I also like the idea that there could be options, because sometimes we're just too focused on it should do more damage, but attacks, again, especially when we look at HP as more than just damage.
Yes.
Crit attacks. I mean, shit. I would even allow this, right? Imagine a rogue gets a crit attack on the BBEG, and he says, "Oh, I don't want to do damage. Like, in fact, I don't even want to hit him. Like, I don't want to do any damage. I just want to use my crit to feign whatever attack that he was going to do and get around it. And then I just want to come right up to his face and have my dagger at his neck." and then just let him know I could. And then just ask the DM, like, what kind of debuff is that? Because can you imagine, like, again, just being able to choose my crit isn't actually hurting him. My crit is just getting to a point where I'm like, I could end it right here.
Honestly,
and then imagine just saying like the words like, I put the dagger up to his neck and then I just say, drop your weapon. And then see if that's the debuff. Can I disarm him psychologically? Because why can't that be a crit? Why can't the crit
truly
be that moment where you overcome them, not just in an attack, but in that moment you're just like, I could just take you out right now. Like there are moments like that I think could be obtained, and I think crits are a good opportunity. Because again, we're so worried about how much damage those crits do, and I totally agree. It sucks when you don't do a high damaging crit, but it equally sucks, in my opinion, to do a massive crit early on in like a major fight and it doesn't really do anything, right? Like imagine doing a crit and getting 40 damage on a creature that has 500.
So
that's not going to matter early on.
I'm thinking about your scenario that you just posed to me, because a lot of the times, like the way I would look at it is like you'd probably make an intimidation check on the BBEG. You'd get to use whatever stat you freaking want, and you'd probably get advantage. But like imagine you just going up to the BBEG, because they could have all kinds of magical powers or whatever, this, that, and the third. But imagine you go up there, you have your blade to their neck, and you be like, even if you run away from me now, like the bitch I know that you are, know that you're only alive because I let you.
Right? You could
that as an intimidation check.
Like you can run, but if I got you now, no, I can get you again. Like just any of those, like, there's such a psychological game that's not
wild
in D&D. You know what I mean? Like, because
absolutely wild.
For someone like you who has, been in tournaments, there's a big portion of that. Like I've gone to, like the SCA and the night fights. Mm-hmm. Military teaches you all about, psychological warfare. It's everywhere. Like fights are not just purely physical, right? Like you watch MMA, you watch boxing. You watch these guys, they are in each other's heads, or at least trying to be. I mean, even before the fight,
those little pictures that they always do where they're getting in each other's faces, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to intimidate them.
When they're at the weighing table or at the weigh station, right? And they're just face to face, the entire thing is just a mind game.
Yep.
So we don't really get that in this. And I know it's not really something that's easy to make a mechanic for, but it's just more of one of those encouragements for DMs to take those great moments,
recognize that it's real,
and let people like work off of them. So crit tables, not a fan. I much prefer to be dynamic, but I do like this idea of giving the player a choice on what, because again, damage is great, but if it's early on or something that just has a wicked amount of HP, is damage really the best thing you want, right? But versus being able to damage their armor, versus being able to knock them prone or push them into your buddy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you guys have them surrounded and you crit and you choose the move option, you shove them 10 feet, giving all of your allies opportunity. Well, no, I guess you don't get opportunity attacks.
But I will say, imagine you have somebody in your team that has the sentinel feat, and you just put them right in range of them. And so now when they want to run, they're going to have to run away from your sentinel buddy, who's going to make your speed 0, and you're just going to sit there and get wailed on.
I always do find it interesting, though, that intentional running away lets you have an opportunity attack, but if someone shoves you, no.
I will say it's because in order for me to run away from you, I have to like turn my back to you. And if I'm not specifically disengaging, now the other way, like I'm giving you all of my attention until the very last second that I just disappear from you.
I'm not talking about from the person that you're fighting, though. I'm just talking about like if you're engaged with an enemy and I just happen to be right here engaged with this enemy, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm engaged with this enemy, you're engaged with that enemy, your enemy runs, I still get an opportunity attack on him. He left my 5 feet as well.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's anybody's 5 feet.
That's true.
But if you were to shove him, I don't get that same opportunity attack. You could shove him out of my space, but he has to leave. So again, when you, like, you're absolutely right. When you look at it from the prism of what it was supposed to be, which is the one-on-one, that's exactly why. If I shoved you, I'm shoving you, or someone else shoved you, but you're out of my combat range. And if you run, you're disengaging with me, which means I can now take advantage of that. I totally get that argument. But when you look at the expanded aspect that, again, if you just run past a bunch of enemies, every single one gets opportunity attack on you, right? If you take the dash action past 5 enemies, that's 5 opportunity attacks you're going to take, even if they're engaged with another person. So that just begs the difference. Why is it that me intentionally running and me being forced to be moved either by a force attack, a push, I'm just curious. I know the real reason is balance. The real reason is balance, because shoving is a mechanic, and it would be too easy to just have everyone next to someone just constantly shoving him and everyone gets free attacks. Because think about it, I could use my 1 action and get 5 attacks from all of my allies, and then on your turn you use your 1 shove action and we get 5 attacks.
Well, you do have to use your reaction, so it's only once per turn at the very most, yeah. But still forcing it, because how many times do you go and not use your reaction because you just didn't have a use for it this turn?
Exactly.
Right? That's one of your most unused attacks is your opportunity or your reaction. Yeah. And so, like, honestly, like, being able to intentionally proc that to do damage on a regular basis, like, that's pretty powerful.
I know, and so I get that technically rules is written. I know why they didn't do it, because it's OP and it's just too much. Again, it's kind of like the whole it's the peasant cannon all over again. It really is. But it's a more useful and technically a more realistic peasant cannon, because while the peasant cannon technically breaks physics, this is just game breaking because it works. Because technically, if you allowed opportunity attacks on forced movement, that's exactly what you would do. You would just shove him and all of you would just be there to do an opportunity attack, and so that's, you all get a free attack. But still, it when you kind of look at the broad aspect,
theoretically, somebody being drugged past you, you'd still be able to swipe at them just like somebody being running past you.
Exactly. So curious that it kind of like has that separation. But
yeah.
We have a hydrant and I'm out of water. I will be right back with more
hydration
water.
Station.
Maybe you can answer chat real quick while I go get my water.
Oh, let me take a gander. What are we looking at? What about teleporting away via Misty Step? First of all, I absolutely love the Misty Step spell. I think that's one of my favorite, especially because it's a bonus action. It's just so quick. But that's definitely not any sort of teleportation away from a creature. I'm pretty confident does not provoke opportunity attacks. There's just nothing for you to do.
Teleportation does not.
You're just gone. You're just gone. So I think teleportation, like that's kind of what I was talking about when it came to that BBEG running away from that rogue that snuck up on him. He would just not be able to, like, yeah, you can Misty Step away from me, but you running away like a little hoe, all right? And I'll come for you again. I'll be in the shadows, bro.
So I think we're both on the same idea that crit tables, while they're creative and worth a peek and read through, don't use them. Just be creative in the moment and use what's happening in the moment to your advantage. I just feel like that's really what's going to make the best for the story and the best for the combat. But yes, I will let you guys know once I've finalized the crit options. I will post those in Discord when that's done.
I like it.
And so our last topic, yeah, we're actually making good time. Cool. We might actually just end at 2:30 or something like that. So our last topic is leveling. So we recently did a episode, for anybody who wasn't here, on the history of leveling. So we went through, how leveling has been done through each of the editions, how they approached it, how the XP worked and how it was calculated, how you got XP, how DMs were supposed to hand it out and everything. So that was, I don't know. But yeah, so there was a lot that we discussed in terms of like how it all works, but it's been a while since we've just talked about leveling in general, how we dish out XP and how we attempt to work leveling into the storyline. Whether it's, it's funny because, a lot of people, I think, prefer milestones, especially with 5th edition. I think it's the most preferred method and probably the most encouraged, especially because everybody levels up the same. Every all the XP is the same. So really, it's difficult in 5th edition unless you're giving out individual XP to level up differently anyway.
Yeah, and I get it. And again, for me, I use milestone mostly because the type of gameplay that I feel like my players are interested in is not trying to play with their XP and make sure they just want to progress, right? And they want to feel like they're going somewhere, they're achieving something. So I'll say for me, I 100% use milestone, and honestly, I just do what I think feels right? Because there's times where it's like, hey, there's something happening, there's a climax that's coming, like when you're watching a movie, right? And you feel like you're coming to like a significant place in the plot, or where there's a tipping point, it might not necessarily be the end, it might not be like the finish, but like something's happening here. You're overcoming an obstacle. You're surmounting odds right now. Like those are the types of things that I feel like I desire to reward. I desire to make you feel like you overcame something, you accomplished something, you did something, and now you're reaping the benefits of that. Now you've bolstered yourself. You've become something bigger, something greater than you were before. So
yeah, I feel like with me, I have in the past struggled with milestones, but I think it's because it's the idea that I always want people to I want my players to have fully experienced what each of the levels has to offer, the challenges, the benefits, the perks. I mean, I love low level gameplay because you get the most creative stuff out of it.
Sure, most definitely.
So it's like, I do like that, but with milestones, it's always hard to know when enough is enough and when it's time for the next step, which is kind of why I like my modified version, because I do, give out XP, but it's in a way that's almost milestone-y, because it's like I don't give out XP every gaming session or every combat. It's every now and again I'm like, okay, let's do a recap of what you've all done, multiple gaming sessions, then give out a chunk, because it's like I know how the XP works and I know you're not going to level up that often. So it's like, why give you XP
just so you can sit there and track it number by number?
When it's like when you're going to get 500 XP this gaming session and 200 that session, but you need 10,000 to level up. Who fucking cares about writing 200 and 250 and 300? What I want to give you when you need 10,000 is I want to be like, okay, the last couple gaming sessions you've done blah 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 6,000, because then it's like, oh shit, next level up session I'm gonna level up, like the next XP session, right? I want people to look forward to getting XP, right? But when you're getting XP like every combat or every gaming session or every couple gaming sessions, but it's in those low numbers where you're just watching the number go up, but you're like, okay, it's gonna be a couple more. I much prefer to do my XP sessions like milestones, where it's like you're going to get a big chunk. You're probably not going to level up right now, but you're going to get a big chunk to see how far you've come.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of gauge, okay, well, it's been this long since the last level up. This is about what I have to do in game to justify the next level up, right? And I feel like that's a lot better for me. Instead of just doing the trickle method and instead of doing milestones, I kind of just do the, when does it feel right? When does it feel like there's, because I'm also big on the story in terms of you guys have done a lot of stuff, but I'm not going to do a level up or a big XP dump when you're like in the middle of a dungeon or, in the middle of something. So I always try to find when it makes sense to be like, hey, you guys have finally like taken a breather. You had enough time. All of this stuff finally came to fruition for you, right?
Yes.
So those are the approaches that I like to take. Is it's a milestone of XP giving, which gives people benchmarks to where they're at in this stage of the game.
Yes.
But I also think that that's not as limiting, because I would say this, my method would not work in 5th edition because of the way that the subclasses work and the way that everybody kind of knows what's coming. It's not nearly as good because you're not, in 5th edition, you're not learning how to use your character. You're waiting to use your character, if that makes more sense. And what I mean by that is like when you use a subclass, you're not learning how to use that subclass. You know what the subclass can do. You're always waiting for the next thing it can do. But in High Point and in 2nd edition, because it's so customizable, the waiting period in between level ups isn't like, oh my God, I just want to be able to do XYZ. It's that whole period of until you level up, you're learning what you want next. You're learning what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths. So by the time you get that level up session or you get that XP session, you're like, okay, we're halfway there. Next time we get XP, I'm going to level up. Shit, what am I going to do with my character? Like, I want that. I want it to be not I don't like the mindset of, oh my God, when are we going to get XP? Because I need that other ability. I want we're about to level up. What am I going to do? Like, where do I need to take my character next? I
definitely get that.
And that's the experience I want to give, but it's also the experience I like as a player. Again, the way that I build my character, I don't build it from the top down. So I like to know that the level up's coming, because then I'm like, well, where am I going next? Like, do I need to, like, based on these, based on the last encounters, based on how my character's been playing and how he's been talking to people, do I need to marshal up? Like, do I need to get more weapon stuff going on? Like, do I need to be able to do more damage? Or, I mean, am I more like, do I need those diplomacy points? Like, do I need to like start talking more? Do I need to like be able to do things? And that's the way I like to build my characters, based on what's been happening. Where are my weaknesses? Where are my strengths? What am I trying to go for? But that's not how 5th edition feels. 5th edition is very much, I already know what I'm getting next level, so let's fucking get there. Let's go. I want to get to it.
Yeah.
Or you're constantly like, man, this was a cool encounter, but if I was level 7, oh, this encounter would have been totally different. It's like, that doesn't feel as fun to me when it's just you just already know. You know what I mean? Like, there's no mystery or progress. It's just a waiting game. So I will absolutely agree. The way that I do XP would not work in 5th edition, because I think the reason why my way of XP works with my players is it works towards the way that they build their characters. It works towards that interest of what is coming up, instead of just waiting for the next skill.
Right.
But again, when you apply that to 5th edition, milestone makes the most sense, because both the DM and the players are expecting what's happening. Even if the DM doesn't fully knowledgeable about the subclasses that the players have all chosen, you already know like how the leveling system works. So you kind of know, if we're going to go from 3 to 5, I know that benchmark, right?
Right.
If we go from 5 to 8, I know that benchmark. If we go from 8 to 10, I know that benchmark across the subclasses. And it's just so much easier to build a campaign around that. It's easier to be like, hey, by the time you meet this person, you'll need to be level 5. So I'll level you up right before you meet them. And then this person, I don't want you to be like level 12 yet. So I'll let you meet them around level 10, right? It's easier to map that out than it is to try to map it out when after multiple gaming sessions, they're not as far along as you thought they would be.
Right. I've been in certain gaming sessions where the DM will randomly level you up. Like, you'll just be like hanging out in a tavern and be like, hey guys, as you guys go take your next long rest, you're gonna level up.
So it's like overnight, everything's just suddenly,
and then you're like, why did he just do that? Oh, we about to go into something that's crazy dangerous, and we need to be a higher level for that. So it's like there are definitely a lot of DMs who will like telegraph certain things certain ways by doing stuff like that. But it's definitely an interesting dynamic, looking at how different people do different things and like why they go about it. So
yeah,
it's very interesting. Very interesting.
And so that's very similar to how I do XP. So yeah, obviously there's, combat when there is some, depends on, how you go about the combat, how successful you were. And I take a lot of things into account, how much life you had, at the end, like if you guys were brought almost down versus not, basically, was it a landslide or not?
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was that landslide to have?
Interesting. I'm curious what you're going to say about this. If somebody practically took no damage in the fight versus somebody who almost died in the fight, which one would you say gets more XP?
Depends on why. So typically the way I do it is I usually have benchmarks. So I will have like a bunch of different numbers, right? So I'll be like, this encounter has this overall number, but then aspects of the encounter will have their individual numbers, right? So they're all just kind of like, I start with one large number and then I just subtract. That's how I do XP. Instead of adding XP for all my players, I basically subtract from what you could have had. It's a much easier system for me.
Interesting.
So instead of trying to say, oh, you did that, oh, let me just add 50 here. Oh, that was good. I'll add 200 here.
Mm-hmm.
That only happens when you do something I wasn't expecting. when you do something role play or dialogue or diplomacy.
And usually that's individual XP anyways.
That's usually with individual XP. So individual XP typically is added up based on those random moments. But like for combat, I usually start with a cap. I say this combat could net you 8,000 XP. And then everything else from there takes away from it. Did it take you too long? I'm gonna take off 500 because you spent more than 4 rounds on it. So I'm gonna take off 500. You almost died because you were being an idiot. Take off 500. You know, they almost died, but they were heroically trying to save your ass and did so. No loss there because they may have gone down to 1 hit point, but what they did to do it deserved them XP. So it's not so much that it's you had 1 HP and they had no HP, or they had full HP and you had 1 HP. It's not that you're going to have less experience because of it. It depends on why. If you ran headfirst into danger and just got your ass kicked because you had bad rolls, yeah, that's some shitty, you know, that's going to take away your XP, right? But again, if you do something heroic, if you do something that, you know, is part of your character or really push the battle forward, that's going to net you XP regardless of it, right? So everything gets taken into account. It's not a hard and fast rule. I'm not sitting there with a calculator. It's just it's a general idea of here's how difficult I think this can be. Here's how much XP I'm willing to give you if you did everything perfect. Like here's the maximum you could possibly earn. And then everything you do from there will decide how much it takes off.
Okay.
And again, individual, that's why I like having the party XP versus individual XP, because if you do something completely outrageous that I wasn't expecting and didn't factor in, I'll just give that to you as personal XP than party XP.
Right.
Because I figure the party is going to have a generalized amount of XP they can earn from each individual fight. It's your individual actions that may tilt that. But that's not what the party did. That's what you did.
Exactly.
And that's why I like to break it out between individual and party XP, because they're easier numbers for me, right? If I say this fight can net the party 6,000 XP, and by the end of it, I give you guys 4,000 of it. That's easy for me. I say 4,000 XP to the party. There's 4 of you right now, so each of you are going to get 1,000. Super easy. Then I go, but you almost sacrificed yourself to save him. 500 XP just for that. You almost died. You did something cool, but you almost died doing it. So no extra XP for you. But you saved him and almost died for it. 500 for you. That's how I would rule something like that, right?
Interesting.
It's so much easier to do a subtractive than it is to do an additive, right?
No, I like that mindset.
At least for combat. At least for encounters, right? Other things, it's more of an additive, but it's so much easier to realize what's the max they can earn and just take away from the faults. Because at that point, you know, it's an easier judge, right? If they're just critting all over the place, like, okay, cool, you guys are going to get all of the XP.
Sure.
But if they're crap rolling, if they're making poor decisions, you know, if they just, you know, didn't, utilize their resources correctly, these are all reasons why you could, you know, drop the XP that they earn.
This might be slightly irrelevant, but imagine you're watching 2 combats side by side. They're the exact same combat from the beginning. One is a combat that gets the maximum amount of XP possible. Nothing special. They just did exactly what they were supposed to. They just did all the things. The other one, they approach the combat the exact same way. They just get the shittiest rolls ever.
Yep.
And either it takes them forever or they almost die or whatever the case may be. That's going to be like, they get a lot less XP. Not necessarily a lot less, but they'll definitely get less XP than the ones that rolled.
However, I will say this. So yes, bare minimum, or just how you described it, the team B would technically get less XP. But I will say this. Team A probably just wiped the monster in 2 rounds. Just firebolt, hold person, crit strike, done. Cool. You guys got all the XP. Team B tried to do all the same things. Horrible. Took them 6 rounds, 7 rounds, almost all died. But that was 6 rounds that they had to do heroic options. That was 6 rounds that they all had to get personal XP, whereas the others had 2 rounds and probably didn't get anything more because they because when you walk onto the battlefield and go, oh, I crit and then divine smite, like, and I just killed him, it's like, cool, that's a move you can do. There's nothing special about it. You might get a little extra XP because you killed it in one hit. I'll give you XP for that. But there was nothing amazing about that. It's not going to change the storyline.
Right.
But those guys that almost died, one of them could have done something that earns them personal XP because they struggled more. So I also have to look at that too. It's not because you could say that it's not fair that they earn less XP for, twice as much work, but it's also like concept of what do you learn from it, right? Like, yes, you could say that the people who do it fast, they didn't learn much from it, right? They've already known as much as you can. But that's where the personal XP comes in, because if you're just making bad decisions the whole combat, why should you get any extra XP just because it took you extra long? You didn't do anything. But if it took you long and you were seeing what your mistakes were and you corrected for those mistakes halfway through the battle, I'm going to give you XP for that, because that's what experience is you learning from what you're doing. So the idea that, yes, the team A will get max experience because they did the thing, but all they knew how to do was that one thing. So they get that level of experience. And they get a divided level of experience. They don't get personal experience. They get an equal amount to the whole problem at hand. But it's that personal experience that really sets you apart and really elevates you. Figuratively and literally.
Right.
Because that's what's going to set you apart from the rest of your party, and really get you to be ahead of the game. Okay.
No, I'm for sure here for that. I like that.
So that's how I like to do my leveling system. Is it's and again, because they're loose numbers and I don't have to calculate, I take it over a long period of time, right? So because let's face it, not every combat is spectacular.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of combats where I'm just like, okay, cool, yeah, you'll get the full 1,000 for that one, and then I'll just move on, right? Will I remember that I said that you get, like, will I specifically write down that battle was 1,000? No, but I will remember that you got the full amount. And so later down the road, when it's been a couple months and we're like, okay, so what have you guys done? So you guys have done a handful of battles, and I'll sit there and go, okay, those battles were probably 500 to 1,000 XP. And I remember that you guys, got all of that. So I'll be like, okay, so you did about what, 5 of those? Okay, cool. That's 3,000. Boom. Right there. We're okay. Well, we'll do 4,500 because that one was actually really difficult. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, well, what'd you guys? Oh, what else did you? You guys went to these towns. Oh, you did help that town do that one thing. Well, that's another 1,500 group XP. Oh, but you specifically had that conversation, and because of that conversation, you guys were able to accomplish that. So that's the 1,500 for the party, but you're going to get 500 for that, right? So I'll sit there and I'll just have them recap since the last time we leveled up, and I'll have them tell me everything, and then add in what I remember that they don't.
I mean, your players are your biggest notebooks.
And then once we've basically overcome it, I just look at everything and go, okay, so here's your chunk of XP that everyone's gone. Here's the group XP that you guys have learned or earned. And then here's all of the personal XP, right? It's true. Sometimes some things will get missed, but for the most part, if they get missed, they were probably not going to be that much XP anyway. You know what I mean? Like, we usually, if you're getting a substantial amount of XP, it was probably a turning point in the story.
Right.
Like, it wasn't something just because you got like attacked by like a wolf pack or something like that. Like, those are the things that we forget. Like, oh yeah, we got attacked by those wolves. Like, okay, that would have been 200 XP. Ooh, right?
Right.
But what we're really looking at is like, how did you progress the story and how did you get here? Like, what did you do? How did you play your character? And what did you do that went above and beyond?
Yeah.
And then once I can divvy all of that out, it's a lot easier to work with the players in terms of like prepping them for the next level up. They kind of know how much longer it's going to take them. They kind of know the things that they need to do, right? If they do a lot, I mean, if it's been 6 months, like real time, and we've done, a dozen gaming sessions, and they get an XP dump and it's like 5,000, they're going to be like, fuck, we didn't do a whole lot. Like, no, you've talked a lot. Like, I mean, think about Dovd.
Yeah.
Dov's not gonna have a shit ton of XP. Like, I mean, he is, because we're gonna like, it's been a minute, so we're gonna milestone him. But
sure.
But like, Dov's got stuck in one of those situations where you could have infinitely sat there and had that conversation infinitely, gaming session after gaming session, and in-game time could have passed. But you're not really getting XP the same way that
exactly
you're getting knowledge, but you're not getting XP. So you could run into that situation where it's like 6 months could go by and you're like, well, yeah, here's 500 XP. And you're like, I got to do some shit to earn. But that's the idea, right? If a party wants to take time off, right? They're just like, we want to temporarily retire, right? And they want to spend in-game time. You're not going to earn XP doing that. So your character's going to stagnate, right? Until they go out and earn more.
But think about it, like, not every NPC is out leveling up. There's a lot of people that just are what they are. Right? And so if your player characters do that for a period of time, as long as they're okay with it, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, you can go out and keep doing stuff if you want to, like, you know, say if they want to establish themselves in a town, or if they want to, like, get a business going so that they can have some, like, income regularly or whatever. That might net them some XP because they're learning how to do some kind of stuff. But it's
them up.
Exactly.
But they will establish themselves and they will get benefits from that. And that's the thing, is where that's why I like the second edition approach, because I mean, obviously I also use XP and not just milestone, because XP is tangible. It actually has value outside of leveling up. Like there's more you can do with XP in High Point. But I also I prefer the XP method just because, you know, milestones are great, but for me, XP is also a way to check in with the players, and essentially, like, yes, you're always going to level up, but it's another way to let them know what their pulse check is. It's another way to reward them and let them know, like, these are the things that you're getting more XP because these are the things that you're doing. It's a way to encourage and pull those things out, because if you're just doing milestones, it can be a little bit harder outside of just giving them inspiration, right? Like, how else do you tell them that's more of what I want, right? That's another reason why I like to do XP, is it's an easy way to show what's working and what isn't. And yeah, and I feel like with my players, they don't mind too much about the lack of leveling up, and I think that's just, it comes down to how you DM and how you tell your story, right? If you get to a point to where your story is stagnant and your players are bored and they're like, when are we going to level up? It's probably because your story isn't working with
engaging
their current level.
them. Yeah.
But for me, because it's that open world, like, the idea is that the world interacts with what you're doing to it regardless of your level. Because, like, I love the idea that my world doesn't know what level the characters are. Like,
yeah.
I when you're in my world and you're going and talking to somebody, they don't know what level you are. And I feel that, I don't want to say I have any, like, evidence of this, but I want to believe, or at least I feel that the DMs that I've experienced in the world in like my past don't see it that way. Like, I feel like a lot of the games I've been in, the DMs very much in world know what level everyone is, you know? Like,
right.
Like, how often is it that if you're not level 15, you're not going to intimidate anybody of note? Like, the DM just won't allow it. But it's like, but why? They don't, like, it's one thing to, like, you know, be in a room of generals and we're the peasants that they just hired. Like, they just hired us. They know what we are. But if we're in a room and someone brand new walks in and we're like, who is that? And then, you know, the DM does that whole thing of, like, you know, they get all offended. It's like, but they don't know who I am. Why would they be able to disrespect me, but suddenly I have to respect, like, it's that whole thing of, like,
at the very least, there's an element of whether you can intimidate them has a lot more to do with who they think they are versus who they think you are.
Yeah.
Or it could be a combination of the two, because imagine I think I'm all that and you're trying to intimidate me. You might be able theoretically to roll high, but, like, I think I'm the greatest.
Exactly.
Like, and I have this conflict. So I might not be intimidated, even though I should be.
And I'm totally fine with that. But it's just, yeah, it feels like there's a limitation sometimes with the ideology that, well, you're level 5, so you just can't. And it's like, but in the game, the world doesn't know I'm level 5.
Exactly.
It's one thing to say I'm level 5 and I can't cast a level 9 spell. I get that. That's not what we're talking about here. But there are some things where it just feels like, well, you're level 5, so you just can't try to even accomplish that. But, like, that doesn't make any sense, that I can't. Nobody in the world knows that I'm not that.
Level 5 is not tattooed on my forehead.
Right? Like I should be able to, I mean, I should be able to walk into a room full of level 20s, and if I know the words and I act the part, I should not be able to be found out that I'm only level 5. Like, right. But that's not how it feels in a lot of D&D situations. It feels like if you were to walk into a room full of level 20s, it'd be obvious.
Although I'll say,
I mean, gear. You could make the argument of gear.
Yeah, I mean, gear, sure, but, like, I also feel like as a martial artist, I feel like I can walk up to somebody and tell not necessarily like what rank they are, but if you've trained before.
Right.
Like I can tell if you have experience based upon almost like the air that you give off, how you carry yourself. And I will say there's something to be said about only a certain amount of experience can actually bring on a certain way that you would carry yourself. And so there might be something. Now, I would say it should require some sort of like insight into you and like.
You're being very generous with how most people use it, but you're absolutely right. These are valid points a DM could use as to why it's not working, why something isn't working, or why the fact that you're a low level is obvious. But again, I just
not everybody should be getting those benefits. I'll say that
and that's
for sure.
Like it feels just more of the world knows what level you are, and that's what I mean is. And a lot of times when I'm playing the game, it feels like everything just knows what level I am, right? Like, you know, like how many times do you play and you're super low level, and then like, you know, you're just an adventurer, but then all of a sudden you're level 20 and like, oh my god, Purse, oh my god, you're our hero. And it's like, but I've never been here before. Like I could get that if I saved you, but like even DMs will do that to where until you reach a certain level, no one will think twice about you. But then suddenly at a certain level, you're just getting discounts at shops. And it's like, but I've never been in this town before. I haven't saved these people. These people have no reason to know who I am. Unless
the DM is articulating in lore that your reputation precedes you. And like you're coming across.
I'm talking about like, imagine you come to somewhere that shouldn't know who you are, but they treat you differently than the first town you ever went to. That's what I don't like, is like, how does the world know I should be treated that way? Like, I know the DM's trying to do it to represent what I've done, but I don't want it just to be done just because I deserve it. I want it to be done because I earned it, right? And getting respect just because I'm a level 20 doesn't make sense to me, because they don't know I'm a level 20.
Who are you? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just some dude in armor. Like, you're telling me that no person has ever dressed up in this kind of fancy armor and then grifted them before? Tell me no one's ever acted like me before but wasn't me? It's just one of those.
Yeah.
I want more with that deception. I want more with what players can do. And I like that, right? If a player really wants to, like, if a player at level 2 or level 5 wants to be like, hey, I know where all the generals, I know their bathhouse. I'm just going to walk up in there and I'm the same age. I'm just going to walk up in there and act like I'm just one of them. Like, go for it. Like you said, like, I would be like, okay, well, there's going to be a handful of them you'll want to watch out for because like they know most of their guys and they know how, like, you know, they carry themselves, but you have the knight background. Like, you used to be a knight, you know how to carry yourself. Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? Like, if someone wants to do it, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, they're going to know immediately. Like, why would they? If you walk in, like, again, it's so true in the real world. Walk in anywhere with like a vest and a clipboard, ain't nobody question you.
People leave. You just like look around, start writing stuff.
You don't even got to look around. You can just walk in and just look at the clipboard and be like, oh, I'm looking for Josh. Is Josh? No, I think he's up at the front. Is it this way? Thanks. And people just point you like, yep, go up to the front.
Dude, these guys got into like some concert, some event for free. They were wearing these yellow vests and they were carrying a ladder and they just walked right in. They didn't say anything to anybody. They just walked.
If you look like you belong, nobody questions you.
It's wild.
And so that's where I feel like, again, the world shouldn't know what level. You know what I mean? Like, when it comes to leveling, the world should treat you like, if you have an NPC who basically assumes everybody isn't worth their time, I'm fine if that's how they do it. But don't do the thing, like, because I've seen this in, you know, with DMs do this with NPCs, where you walk into the room and the NPC basically is just like, you know, nose turned up at you, blah, 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 whatever. But then someone else comes into the room that, you know, again, equally that they don't know, but then they act different towards that person. Like, the NPC itself somehow recognizes that you could kick my ass, but you couldn't. And it's like, in this context, both of us look like we could kick your ass. Why do you respect? Like, why are you playing it off?
Yeah.
You know, again, if you know the character, or if there's like some interplay, I get it. But there's too many times I feel like it's just been kind of okay, yeah, I'm I'm that level and everybody knows it, so I can't do much about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's more personal pedanticness, I guess.
No, it's true. It's true. It's hard a lot of the times because I wish there were a better way for that to be represented, like easily remembered, because you don't want to feel like all of a sudden the challenge disappears for your players, right? You don't want everything to just be easy all of a sudden, but at the same time you want them to feel like they're still in a world, right? They're still in a world that they can interact with, that they can touch and do stuff with. So, you know, when something gets too easy, when it's just like, all right, I can do whatever I want here because I'm a higher level now, you know, you want to, and that, I think a lot of times that's why DMs have a hard time scaling the world to their players. Like everywhere that you go, you are matched up with people that are,
which is why I don't like that method. I don't like the world scaling. I like the world to be static in the sense that there are things of all levels everywhere. What you interact with and what you get attention to will typically scale with you. But like in terms of what you choose to interact with, what you choose to get the attention.
Because it's like, why am I choosing this otherwise?
Well, yeah, because it's like if you're you know level 1, like the BBG doesn't have any interest in you, right? Bandits have interest in you. But once you've taken on a couple bandits and you've maybe cleared out like a thieves guild, suddenly you get some notoriety. And now it's not just local bandits that care about you. Again, the BBEG still doesn't know about you. You're just some punk group. But now another rival gang has been like, hey, they're on our turf, right? Mm-hmm. That rival gang is more than the bandits you've run into on the streets. So that rival gang is obviously scaled with you because they are a bigger threat because you are now a notoriety to them. Once you've overcome that threat, there's going to be a bigger entity that now recognizes you and goes, hey, wait a second, you did this thing? I don't like that. That's what I like to do. In terms of when I scale what the players are interacting with, it's purely based on the scale of whose attention have you got, right? What have you done and what circles are you running in? I mean, and I'll even throw them, random stuff. I'll even still throw them lower level like interest because some people are dumb. And they're going to get an interest in you and not realize how badass you are. And they're going to come after you. And then you're going to level them very easily. And then word's going to get out. And that's going to happen less and less because those on that level are going to realize that you're too higher now. But until you do something to, because I just don't like the idea that if you beat one enemy, how does everybody in the world know you beat that enemy, right? Some circles will know, but other circles won't. And they still have to get proven to you, or they have to get it proven to them that you're better than them. So that's why it's like, I like the idea of a static world where there are things out there of all levels. And if you wanted to go poke the bear, you're able to at level 1. If you wanted to go find, you want to go poke a god, you can. It's not advisable.
I mean, you'll see what happens.
But I'm the kind of DM where it's like, I'm not going to not let you, but I'm also not going to like force level 5 players against like, an ancient dragon.
Right.
I'm not going to do that, but I'm also not going to make it not possible.
Yeah.
If you are walking the path to, by level 5, unlock this ancient dragon, I as a DM will give you every warning sign that is what you are about to do. And if you just keep doing it, I'm not going to make it to where it's impossible. It's just going to be well, you shouldn't, but you're still doing it. So let's go.
Right.
And I like that in a world because again, it's that whole thing of you should be able to run into things of every level, right? Like you should be able to at any level run into anything at any level.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily mean like in a death-defying, you should be able to automatically run into a level 20 and die, but there should be no reason why everybody you interact with, like why is it that you can't go and talk to a level 20 wizard that's, at a mage college? Like if there's a situation where you could, why not try to get that knowledge from them? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It just doesn't make sense why you would only ever be able to talk to people like at your level or who is hiring. Like,
yeah.
I like the idea that, again, it just makes sense. Like if I have an NPC, it doesn't matter what level he is. Is he nice? Does he care about helping you? If he's not nice, it doesn't matter what level he is. He's not going to help you. But if he is nice, he could be a level 30 and be like, well, absolutely. What do you need? Do you need an extra spell? Here's a scroll for you. Like It just depends on who you meet.
Right.
But it shouldn't be dependent on where you are in your life. It should be dependent upon where you are in the world.
Yes.
That's what
because it'll be there no matter what, like
exactly. It doesn't matter if it depends. I don't lock anything behind a level wall. It's just, do you want to go that challenge?
I mean, think about how many regular Joes have randomly run into celebrities and met a celebrity. Your level, whatever, 2, 3, and he's a level, 15, 16, whatever. He's A-listed, whatever,
Right.
It's real. You can 100% interact with these people.
And yeah, and you could learn from them and get favors from them, or they
happen into a good deal.
A nothing conversation, and that's it. You met him and that was it. So
yep.
I like that in terms of how I do my stories and how I do High Point, is that I don't like the idea that the world needs to scale with you. I like the idea that you can run into, creatures that are one hit for you.
Yeah.
I like that you can run into things that you need to think twice about, intimidating or talking back to. Otherwise, you might be out of your league. But that's where I think the real challenge too, a lot of the times comes from, is never knowing, like always having these varying challenges, right? Because a lot of the times in D&D, we talked about this, where it does kind of suck after a while when everything is always more powerful than you. Like, you're winning, you're leveling up and you're getting the battles, but it does kind of suck sometimes just when every battle brings you to 10 hit points. It kind of sucks every time that you're a wizard, every battle dusts all of your spells. It kind of sucks that, every battle you have to go get new potions. Like, there's just a lot of the times where battles just seem like they're always bringing you to the brink of death. And it's like, that's not really how it should feel. Like, you should have battles that are one-sided for you and one-sided against you. You should have battles that you walk through, and you should have battles that challenge you. But I don't believe that a challenging battle has to bring you to
the brink of death. Yeah.
Because that's just not how normal battles go. Like, and again, if you even take our expanded idea of what HP means, your willingness to fight.
Mm-hmm.
If you are regularly brought to the brink of wanting to give up, I'm not sure you're a great fighter. You know what I mean?
Or
like,
you're trying to keep going down that road.
I'm just wondering. It's like, because it literally, like if every battle you were like right there to basically just being like, I'm fucking, I can't keep doing this. Like, I'm done. Like, I just can't fight. I just rather die. Like, that's the whole point. Like, if you get constantly brought to that stage, that's psychologically damaging.
Either that or you're punching above your weight class.
Exactly. So I feel like, at least with High Point, like, there's so many opportunities where even a low level battle can be challenging in a way. Like, I can give you a low level creature that's just very hard to hit. You know what I mean? You may just be rolling bad, but I could just say it's like very fast, constantly moving. I could just find it's something that has a high AC, but like no hit points. Like, all you gotta do is hit it once and it will die if you can hit it. And that could just be annoying. It could not be life threatening. I like the idea that could be a non-life threatening. You're not worried that your character is going to die in this situation because the thing can't do enough damage to you.
Doesn't hit that hard.
But it is just one of those situations where I'm like, motherfucker, I want this thing done. And I think those can also be entertaining combats when it's more of a frustration than it is a concern. When it's more of a, I know I'm going to beat this, but Jesus, will it just die already?
Yep.
And that's what I like to do in terms of try to make it varied and try to make the experience overall worth it. Because, like I've always said, I've been a big proponent in letting players get benchmarks in a sense of feeling where they've come with their players and their characters. And I feel like being able to give them lower level combats, like, again, one of my favorite things to do is give them a combat that they almost failed early on. Like, not necessarily the same person. Sometimes it can be the same person. But what I like is, like, if they ran into a group of bandits, a pack of dire wolves, just pick any random, like, little normal, pre-level 5 encounter you could throw at, a party. If you did that and they barely survived it, like basically was almost a TPK, remember that. 5 levels later, give them the exact same battle. The exact same. 5 dire wolves before, give them 5 dire wolves again. Because they might not remember, or maybe they will be like, oh, we've been here before. But But when they go through it, there's going to be a moment where it clicks for them of, wait a second, we have been here before. This is so much easier. Because you assume it, right? You assume things are easier, but how often do you actually get to go head to head and go, holy shit, last time we couldn't hit these guys, they were just doing massive amount, like you'll see them start to compare. Like, it took me 5 hits to kill him last time. This time he's down in 2. Well, he almost, I mean, I was unconscious after 2 bites. He's hit me 4 times and I'm not even at half health. Like, that's the things that I love doing for my players, is giving them those combats like that, because watching them piece those things together, that's what I'm trying to encourage, is having them point out, I couldn't do this before, now look what I can do.
Right.
And I don't feel like you really get that when everything's always harder. Like, if you always scale up the enemy 2 levels higher, you're never really going to get that moment for the players of going, holy shit, look where we've come. Like, look how much stronger I am now, because everything's always stronger than them. So even though you might be doing more damage even though every level you do, let's say on average 5 more damage every time you level up. But if the enemies are going up by 20 hit points every time, you don't really feel like you're getting stronger, because you're still taking the same percentage away from them. So your damage went up by 10, but you're still, every time you attack them, you're still only taking 10% of their health.
Right.
Then next level, your damage goes up, but the enemy is still 10% per hit. So I started doing 10% per hit at 1d8, and now I do 40 damage per hit, but I still do 10%. That's not getting stronger. Like, that wouldn't feel like getting stronger. Like, imagine if when you're doing martial arts, imagine with the bow staff, getting to the point to where you're practicing with it and be like, hey, I can actually strike someone with it. And then you go up against somebody and then they block both. And you're like, okay, well, now I can actually strike 4 times. I'm getting better. I can do a fake out. Then you go up against the next person. They're like, block, 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 block. And you're like, I'm better, but I'm not getting better. Like,
I still can't do the thing that I've been trying to do this whole time,
right?
Which is get hit in.
Yeah, because the enemy's always better. So it's like you can constantly get better at what you're practicing, and that's kind of like what it can feel like, when you when you're in class. If you're always going up against your instructor, you can constantly get better. You can jump higher, kick more, punch faster, get in more attacks. But if you're always going up against your instructor, he's always going to block you. You're never going to get, no matter how many hits, no matter how good you get, he's always going to be one step ahead. But that's not what happens. That's not how they train. You train against your peers. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you go against one dude that you couldn't down, and then after a couple months of training, you finally down him. You get the pin. You get the point on him, and you're like, holy fuck, I can finally do it. That's what players, I think, miss a little bit in D&D combat, is those moments when they're like, oh, I can finally do that thing I've been wanting to try and do. Because you pull off combos, you pull off cool things that you can do, but that idea of like, I wanted to get this ability to just like one shot somebody, but you finally worked it up, you finally got it there, but there's no one to one shot because there's no one below you to one shot. I feel like, where is that? Where is the dumb level 1 bandit trying to steal from us just because we're leaving town and they don't realize that we're level 10 fighters? Where is the dire wolf that's hungry enough to attack you? Like, we had dire wolves attack us all the way up until level 8. Why haven't we seen one since? The dire wolves just suddenly know shinier armor? Ooh, like, there's just some things that don't make continuity in the D&D story, where it's like suddenly you just realize, like, these things used to happen to us all the time. They just don't anymore. Some things make sense, but then there are other things where it's like, why did that stop happening? Oh, because it's not fun, because it's too easy. But it's like, but it still would happen. And again, that's where I think the biggest difference between a storytelling DM and
I totally want to put a goblin up against, one of my players, like, and just have them drop their hammer on it and it just completely squished. Like in the past, when they would go up against it, it would take like a hit, maybe 2. You just squashed it. Yeah. Like, you guys are bullying these little guys. Like, yes, they attacked you, but God bless America.
And that's what I like. I remember that distinctly in my early years of being a player.
Yeah.
Is that was one of my biggest gripes, is you'd meet these cool NPCs and they would do something and you'd be like, oh, I can't wait till I could do that. But even if you could do the same thing, you were never able to do it. You were never able to do what you want. Like, you basically never be able to be impressive. Like, you could see them do something and be like, man, I can't wait till I can do that. But by the time you can do it, it's not impressive.
Yeah.
It's just part of the things you can do. But it's like, but where is that moment for your player to do that thing and inspire an NPC or another player? Because that was the whole deal. You saw the NPC do it and you're like, oh, that seems cool. But by the time you got to it, who thinks it's cool? No one thinks it's cool. What did I just work on to do? Why did I work so hard to look cool when no one thinks it's cool anymore? Like, that's what
it's like you hit a trend at school way too late. You're like, oh, I'm finally the dopest at hacky sack, bro.
Yeah.
And then like, bro, we're yo-yoing now. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
That's weak.
And so that's one of my biggest struggles as a player is, keeping up that reality of, I want to know that I'm actually getting stronger, because sometimes it just feels like I can do more, but I'm not actually stronger.
Yeah.
Because the ratio of what I'm doing to the people I'm facing is still the same.
I feel that.
But yeah, that's my hot takes on that one. Where are we at? Okay, well, we are at the 2:30 mark. I think that's pretty good. That was all the topics I had.
That was good. We hit
a
it.
Bonus topic from Soul, but that was pretty nice. I kind of
Very
like
much so.
the not our most popular, as I can see from the viewers, not our most popular episode for the Tangent Talks, but I like them sometimes. It's nice to
it's good.
Openly talk, not have a script, not have notes. It's nice to just get opinions out sometimes instead of facts.
Yeah. No, I like it. Sometimes just see where the conversation takes you.
Yeah. But before we go, what are we doing Monday?
Monday. Let's take a gander.
I think you posted it in the Discord.
I did. I was talking with Hecate about it. It is their Cursed Monarch subclass. Cursed Monarch Wizard subclass. So I am very interested. They have a plethora of new curse spells for us to investigate along with this subclass.
I think in one of our episodes recently, we were talking, or not recently, but a while back, we were talking about expanding curses.
Yes,
and talking about that. So I'm super excited. Cool.
It'll be very cool.
Join us on Monday for our homebrew review of the Curse Monarch, which is going to be a curse-based wizard. It sounds dope. If you guys want to get updates on that or submit your own homebrew review, you can do that in the Discord, which we have a link in chat as well, right there. And if you guys want to follow us on any of our social medias, we do have a TikTok account, which I post on daily. Sometimes I do regular TikToks, and then a lot of it's just shorts from the live stream. We also have a YouTube channel and everything else like that. So if you want to follow that, link is in chat for our link tree. All of our socials are there. So please like, subscribe, follow, and let us know what you guys want to do.
As a note, Mind's Eye is still streaming. If you wanna drop off him,
we could if you guys want to have some more D&D stuff, we'll go ahead and raid out to Mind's Eye real quick. He's one of our followers. He's in the Discord, and he does a lot of cool.
Very cool. I love watching his
their
games.
role play is amazing. Like he does some amazing role play. His voice acting is really good too.
Oh wow,
like
that's awesome.
And everything.
That's really cool.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. So join us on Monday for the Cursed Monarch. Next Saturday is going to be the
community stream.
Yes, next Saturday is going to be the community stream. And then get in Discord. Let us know what you guys want, because right now we are still a tie between pop culture builds and subletting subclasses. Can we do a quick pop culture build tonight? Not tonight.
Oof.
But let us know in the Discord which one you want us to do, and we might fit that in. We might be able to do that next week on next Friday. Depends. If pop culture build wins, we'll do that.
Hey,
and then if pop culture doesn't win, we might do one on Friday, or maybe we'll just do two. Who knows? But let me know what you want to do in chat. I think we're just going to be done for tonight, though, because I got other stuff I got to do this weekend. And I am exhausted from all the shit that I did.
Yeah, facts. You did a lot. Yo, I'm very stoked. Once we get to do a stream in the tavern, it's gonna be way cool.
Yeah,
it's gonna be way cool.
All right, so yeah, so be here for that. Be here next week. Like I said, join everything, join the Discord, and you will get updates. We have a sub channel as well. So if you are a subscriber on Twitch, you also get a private channel there that you guys get some extra updates, some behind the scenes, updates on pictures and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes, indeedy.
Before everybody else. So let me see here. You said Mind's Eye. Let me prep this. So yeah, guys, we're gonna right over to Mind's Eye. Hang out for just a few seconds here, and just give him a good hello. Spam your favorite emoji. Where are they?
I mean, I don't know how to.
Oh, there they are. Okay, cool. The Mind's Eye. Let's go raid out to them. All right, guys. So we're going to raid out to Mind's Eye. Please spam your favorite emoji once we get in there. Show them some love. Hang out if you want to watch them. It looks like they are playing. Oh, they're actually playing D&D on a game board right now.
I love that game board. I love watching them play on that game board. It's
fantastic.
Very smooth.
Well, let's get over there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thanks everybody in chat. Soul, Cosmic, Hecate was there.
Yep.
I want to say somebody else. I know somebody else was in there.
I don't recall.
Sorry, y'all. If I forgot your name, I'm so sorry. Like I said, I am wrecked. But thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Again, stick around for the raid. We'll be back on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. I hope you guys had a great week. We'll be back on Monday, guys. Cheers.
This is my friends.
All right, we are raiding in 5 seconds, y'all. Again, spam your favorite emoji, say hi to them. We'll see you guys on Monday. Cheers.
Woot woot.
At the other end, because it isn't impossible.
Yo, Misfit